Last night hit a 3-run home run. As far as this series is concerned, the Yankees lead it 1-0 as they took last night's game 15-4. It is game 2 of this 3-game set. And the Yankees right now entering this game are 2 games back of the Blue Jays after the Blue Jays won big today in Toronto over the Tigers. Hello everybody, Justin Kutcher alongside CJ Nitkowski. And CJ, this is a big game, a big series for New York because they have to keep pace with one of the hottest teams in baseball in the Blue Jays. And
it's not going to be an easy thing to do. The Toronto Blue Jays got significantly better at the trading deadline. They went out and they got Troy Tulowitzki and of course the ace in David Price to go along with the Troy Hawkins, Ben Revere. They are going to be very difficult. That offense, a juggernaut. The Yankees right now struggling offensively.
You know, it's funny because people talk about the trade deadline. The guys were talking about it earlier. The Yankees historically make a lot of moves. This year, Brian Cashman, not many. Instead, he kept his own guys, his young guys, and he said, that's our trade, bringing up tonight's starter, Luis Severino.
Well, this is definitely not your father's Yankees. You talked about it, the age of these guys. Luis Severino, one of the many that he was going to hold on to at the trading deadline. This guy's got a live arm, mid to upper 90s fastball. Very nice slider, good changeup as well to neutralize those lefties. But he has the intangible. It's the poise that Joe Girardi could not wait to tell us about. So impressive at 21 years old.
Severino, his numbers, 24 strikeouts in 23 innings. You mentioned just 21 years old, the youngest starting pitcher in the major leagues today. And as far as his lineup, they pounded out a lot of hits in last night's game. We'll take a look. Jacoby Ellsbury will lead things off. Brett Gardner bats second. Carlos Beltran in the 3-hole. Brian McCann in his return to Atlanta bats cleanup. Greg Bird at first base with Mark Teixeira still out with the injury. Chase Headley at third. Didi Gregorius has been hot. He's at short. Batting 8th is Stephen Drew, and Severino, the pitcher, will bat 9th. And how about our DraftKings choices for tonight?
Well, I have a couple of outfielders for you tonight that are worth having. Keeping your eye on Carlos Beltran at $3,900, hitting .375 over his last 17 games. Much better against righties than lefties. Of course, he's facing a right-handed starter tonight, batting .283 against those righties. And Nick Markakis, $3,700 tonight. .341 over his last 29. When it comes to DraftKings, I like going with guys that are hot. And also for Nick Markakis, better against righties. Severino's going to be tough, without a doubt, but batting .309 against righties this year.
Remember, it's easy to play DraftKings, and there are thousands of dollars in prizes every day. Enter promo code BALLGAME to play for free at DraftKings.com. Matt Wisler, the rookie, will get the start. His 13th start of the year. His numbers, well, he got off to a good start. He's been slow since. 5-4, 5.43 ERA. And he'll have to face this Yankees lineup.
Well, one of the many young pitchers here with the Atlanta Braves. And you saw the low strikeouts. He is a contact guy, but not necessarily a heavy ground ball guy. Home run's a problem for him. In his last start, he allowed 4 against the Chicago Cubs.
Jacoby Ellsbury will lead things off here for the Yankees. Batting .278, 6 home runs, 27 RBIs. Made a big play in last night's game that really may have gone unnoticed, or as far as how big it really was. A sliding catch to straightaway center field in that first inning allowed the Braves only to score 2 off of Tanaka. The first pitch fastball is outside for ball 1.
And here's the thing to keep an eye on with Whistler, which I thought Freddie Gonzalez pointed out, which was so interesting. He says he has great command, but at times he has a tendency to nibble. It's not by choice, but sometimes he gets into that situation where he has to feel like he's perfect. They don't want him to feel that way. They want him to know he is good enough to continue to stay in the zone.
There is Freddie Gonzalez, the manager of these Braves. The Braves have gone through some tough times. Right now, 54-74. 1-1, fisted. Out towards shallow left. That drops in. Ellsbury takes a turn. He's going to try for 2. Here comes the throw. And the tag is not in time. A leadoff double for Ellsbury.
Well, how about the aggressiveness by Jacoby Ellsbury right out of the box? He didn't hit it hard, and that had him thinking extra base hit right away, knowing that ball was going to die when it hit the grass. And for Nick Swisher, a left-handed thrower, was going to have to get around this ball. He sees it drop in and never slows down out of the box. That is the key. When you know it's a single off the bat, always thinking a base ahead. And you see how that ball bounces. Swisher's got to get around it. Made a good enough throw. It's best you're going to do in that situation. But Ellsbury beats it.
And you could see him slide in, almost turn that ankle, came up a bit gingerly, still trying to stretch it out there at second base. The 10th double of the season for Ellsbury brings up Brett Gardner. Here in Atlanta, you have the "Let's Go Yankees" chants. Gardner, first pitch swinging 0-1.
Well, I will tell you, I live in this area. This is where I now call home, but I am a transplant like many people down here in Atlanta, and original New Yorker. Now, I don't come here and root for the Yankees, but there are quite a few of Yankee fans that live down here now in the Atlanta area.
I said it last night that I thought it was about 70% Yankee fans at Turner Field, and it seems like it's much the same here tonight. Gardner tries to get a bunt down, a throw back down to second, and Ellsbury's just in. Nice throw by Bethancourt and a sneaky tag by Andrelton Simmons.
A great throw with some velocity on it and right on the money as well, and almost caught Ellsbury sleeping. And for Gardner, he kind of stabbed it, almost like he was going to pull it back. But look at this throw. Right on the money and right on line. And Andrelton Simmons known for kind of being sneaky, and probably wouldn't surprise me at all had he had some kind of hand signal with his catcher Bethancourt there, always trying to catch base runner sleeping.
You don't see a shortstop many times on that type of a play apply that type of tag.
Yeah, and a lot of guys will actually stand behind the bag and take the throw, but he figured maybe if he gets in front of it, he'd have a better chance of getting the tag there quicker.
So it's no balls and 2 strikes here to Gardner, trying to at the very least get Ellsbury over to third base with just 1 out. High and outside with a fastball. 1 ball and 2 strikes here to Gardner. Carlos Beltran on deck, an 11-game hitting streak for the switch hitting right fielder. The 1-2 from Whistler. Missing low and inside. Now 2 balls and 2 strikes.
And you see the 2-seam fastball there from Whistler. You also see a slider that he throws about 23% of the time. He mixes in a curveball and changeup as well, but the slider is the go-to breaking pitch.
He was acquired. He was that big cog in that trade for Craig Kimbrell, the #1 rated prospect in the Padres organization prior to this year. The 2-2. Fought off foul. 95 on the gun from Whistler.
You think about where the Padres are, where they were, of course, this past winter. All the big moves they expected to be competitive. New general manager A.J. Preller comes in there and has no problem moving his #1 prospect. And I got to think, based on where the Braves are right now, they were more than happy to go ahead and turn over Craig Kimbrell and take somebody else's #1.
And based on where the Padres are right now, maybe A.J. Preller would like to reconsider.
No do-overs on trades.
Another 2-2. Again, Gardner able to foul it back. That's what's, so funny. You think about before the year began, on opening day, everybody was ready to anoint A.J. Preller the executive of the year. Now, once you play the season out, he's not going to garner any votes.
No, and it's really unusual, too, because they weren't sure what they wanted to do with the deadline. That was the other thing. They were holding some teams hostage. There was a lot of talk about, will they trade, will they sell, will they try to keep, and they didn't move anybody. And it seemed like a mistake when it was all said and done.
2-2. Gardner able to move the runner over, grounds out to second, and there's Ellsbury at third with 1 out. Let's take a look at the defense for the Braves in the outfield from left to right. Nick Swisher, Cameron Maben, and Nick Markakis. Around the horn in the infield, Freddie Freeman at first, Jace Peterson at second, Simmons at short, Adonis Garcia at third, and behind the plate is Bethancourt. 1 away now for Carlos Beltran. Infield is back, willing to give up the run for the out here in this first inning.
It was interesting. Sorry, Justin. It was interesting to see that shot right there as we saw Gardner talking to his teammates. Nobody in this Yankee lineup has ever faced Matt Whistler before. And so they're asking him, what does the fastball look like? You can sit there and watch video all day long, but it's not until you actually get in the box. And so for those first couple of hitters, the other guys want to know, what was the movement? How did it look like? Did it get on you pretty quick? Is it hittable? And he's answering those questions right now, doing the best he can for his teammates.
Quickly, no balls and 2 strikes to Beltran. This Yankees team, they like to strike early. 107 runs scored in the first inning this year. That's the most run in any inning by any team. Last night they put 5 on the board in the first. The 0-2 to Beltran. And he chases the high fastball. A big strikeout by Whistler, and they're 2 away.
And that was a big one because the Atlanta Braves were conceding the run. The infield was playing back, and all Carlos Beltran had to do was make contact. But here's a high fastball and an 0-2 count, and you see that bat go right under it, unable to catch up with the 4-seam fastball from Whistler.
And now listen to the ovation for Brian McCann. He grew up here in Atlanta, played with the Braves, came up as part of that Baby Braves Foundation, hitting .247, 23 home runs, 79 RBIs, hit a home run last night, and you can hear the Atlanta fans saying you got to cheer for him. Fastball misses outside, ball 1.
Absolutely. He was a very likable player when he was here, always played the game hard, but also a very good guy in the community. Of course, you talked about him being here locally. There's no doubt the Atlanta Braves would like to have kept him, but at 5 for 85, that wasn't in the plans.
The shift is on with McCann at the plate. Outside, 2 balls and no strikes.
You see that heavy shift, and it just plays into the head of these dead pull hitters. Brian McCann, David Ortiz. Frustrated by it. You'll see their batting averages come down without a doubt because of the heavy shift.
2-0, just missing. Now 3 balls and no strikes. And you kind of wonder maybe if the rookie Whistler would rather face the rookie Greg Bird as opposed to facing Brian McCann right now with 2 outs and a runner on third. McCann hacking away on 3-0.
Well, I'd agree with you right here. You're not going to give in this situation with the runner at third base and 2 outs. If you fall behind, you're going to shoot corners. If you walk them, so be it. As we take a look at Brian McCann and what he has done here with the Atlanta Braves and where he ranks all time. Just imagine, had he stayed here, he's probably pretty close to first in a lot of those when it's all said and done, or at least knocking on the door.
Now the 3-1 from Whistler. Missing up high, ball 4. So first and third, 2 outs for Greg Bird. It was last night in the first 2 innings when the Yankees did their damage, scoring 5 runs in the first with 2 outs, 4 runs in the second with 2 outs. Now they've got 2 outs here. Runners on the corners, and Greg Bird at the plate.
Well, like that Whistler was not going to give in that situation, not throw Brian McCann a cookie, but at the same time now this is the out that you have to get, the less experienced guy in this situation, and make sure now that you end the inning here.
Bird's numbers: .227, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs in 13 games. Low and inside. Whistler, his last 5 games, 0-3 with a 9.13 ERA. One ball and 1 strike.
You can hear that fastball too comes in a little bit heavy. A lot of people say, well, what does that mean? But you can tell by the way that it hits the glove. It's got almost, sometimes we say, less rotation on it, but coming in heavy and a little bit harder maybe to get under that ball and launch it.
The 1-1 to Bird. High and outside, 2-1. And speaking with Joe Girardi earlier today about Greg Bird, he said what sticks out to him is how patient of a hitter he is. He'll take the walk. He's got a great eye. He doesn't chase pitches out of the zone too often. Laying off that one, 3-1, and that's kind of a common theme with both he and Severino, mature beyond their years. No fear.
It's shocking when you think about it. I mean, imagine being a young left-handed hitter coming up in the Yankee organization, having a chance to help a team that's trying to win a division and not being over anxious and not chasing balls out of the zone. It seems almost impossible, and the fact that he's doing it at 22 years old makes it all the more impressive.
The 3-1. Good swing, fouls it back. Now 3-2. Joe Girardi now in his 8th year as the manager of the Yankees. Amazing how time flies.
He's had a really good run too, and he's had his hands full the last few years of dealing with injuries, dealing with lack of production, dealing with an older roster that has sometimes lacked flexibility to bring in some younger, better players.
McCann off with a pitch. The 3-2 fouled back. McCann has to go back to first.
You see Whistler staying steady away with that fastball. It's got good run on it when he throws that two-seamer. Wondering about what does he have for lefties, because the splits are not particularly strong so far. Lefties hitting .357 against him. Righties .265. He is facing all left-handed hitters outside of Severino tonight.
3-2 up and in, ball 4. So back-to-back walks issued by Whistler. Bases are loaded now for Chase Headley. Whistler got off to that good start, 5-1, won his major league debut against the Mets. A great outing, 8 innings, 6 hits, 1 run, no walks, 2 strikeouts, but has struggled since. His last 5, you see a 9.13 ERA. Opponents hitting .375 against him, and now he faces Chase Headley, a veteran, with the bases loaded and 2 outs. In this same spot last night, Headley hit a 2-run double.
You know, this is a big spot now. We talked about the first inning, how important it can be, how good the Yankees have been in that first inning. And out here, very important, but even more important, getting ahead in the count after back-to-back walks with 2 outs. It's important here that Whistler throws something good on either the inner third or outer third of the plate.
And the first pitch is on that outer third for strike 1. Headley's numbers with the bases loaded. Look at what he's done this year. 727.
It's pretty good. How's that for analysis?
Wow. 8 for 11. Backdoor breaking ball, and quickly Whistler's ahead in the count, 0-2.
Well, it's a great job of getting ahead. Chase Headley has never seen that breaking ball. Obviously, he has never seen Matt Whistler. He locates that first pitch fastball, and that is the difference between strike 1 and ball 1. If he doesn't throw that first pitch strike with the fastball, he can't throw that breaking ball there. And now he's sitting in a good position, has to figure out how does he put Chase Headley away. You have at least 1 shot to go for the strikeout, but after that, you want to make sure you get this at bat over relatively quickly.
And it might be early, top of the first, but this is a big at bat in the ball game already. Timeout asked again. Whistler and Bethancourt trying to get on the same page. The 0-2 gets away from Bethancourt into the stands. A run will score. Ellsbury comes in. That should be a wild pitch. That's 1-0 New York.
Well, Matt Whistler wanted to go with the breaking ball down and in. We call it the back foot breaking ball from a right-handed pitcher to a left-handed hitter, thinking about trying to generate that swing and a miss. As you see Bethancourt start to set up in, this ball is going to be in the dirt. You can almost tell right away. And Bethancourt a little bit late getting down and not anticipating. Got to get those knees down and try to square that ball up as quickly as possible. By no means is it easy, but he probably could have gotten down a little bit quicker.
Now the 1-2 fouled back. You mentioned how he throws that heavy ball, 95 miles per hour, a heavy ball. You can see why, with that type of stuff, how he was so highly rated.
Yeah, and what matters now for him is the location of that fastball. We've seen him try to elevate it, but because he has some good life, because it has that heavy feel, you'd really rather see it at knees and lower and try to generate more ground balls. That's something he has not done this year.
And he strikes out Headley to end the inning, but the wild pitch allows the run to score after back-to-back walks load the bases. We're through a half inning. Yankees on top, 1-0. Braves coming up. Markakis steps in to face Luis Severino, the 21-year-old rookie right-hander for the Yankees. 1-2, a 2.74 ERA. Has electric stuff. 24 strikeouts in 23 innings. Opponents hitting just .202 against him. And Severino will face Markakis, who's hitting .300 on the season. And the first pitch swinging is Markakis, drives it to left center field. Gardner, good job cutting it off. And a leadoff single for Nick Markakis.
It's so interesting to see the approaches, right? Obviously, the Braves have never have seen Luis Severino, just like we were talking about Whistler. And so what does Nick Markakis do? Jumping on the first pitch. A lot of times you're thinking, new pitcher, get up there, leadoff man, and get us some information. But you see a fastball that you like when you know this guy throws hard, has great secondary stuff. Jump on the first one, lines it into center field. Even though it was only one pitch, that's a great at-bat by Nick Markakis.
Nick Markakis not really a threat to steal at first base as Cameron Maybin steps in, hitting .274, 10 home runs, 52 RBIs. First pitch, missed alone outside for ball one. Maybin came over in that deal with Matt Whistler for Craig Kimbrell, and he was kind of a throw-in in that deal. And yet here he is now as the everyday center fielder for this Atlanta Braves team, and pretty much everybody raves about what he has done.
Well, it's the guy that had struggled with health, struggled to stay on the field. Once the Padres made all of those deals, there really didn't seem like there was going to be a spot for him. They brought in Will Myers to play center field, so he probably welcomed that trade, and it has really worked out very well for the Atlanta Braves. Cameron Maybin has a very team-friendly deal that runs through next year, plus there's a team option, and they seem to like what he's doing so far here in Atlanta.
Inside with a fastball at 95 from Severino. The numbers for Maybin with San Diego, and then look at what he has done this year. Batting average almost 40 points better. 2-1 popped up behind the plate. McCann with some room makes the catch for the first out. Here is the lineup for Freddie Gonzalez and the Braves. We've seen Markakis and Cameron Maybin. Now Freddie Freeman will hit, followed by Nick Swisher. Adonis Garcia bats fifth. Jace Peterson will bat sixth. The bottom third, Christian Bethancourt, Andrelton Simmons, and the pitcher, Matt Whistler. Freddie Freeman, the big first baseman, 281, 15 home runs, 49 RBIs. A solo shot last night against Masahiro Tanaka. Outside for ball one for Severino.
Freddie Freeman has some of the best opposite field power in Major League Baseball, and even though this is a big ballpark, he can drive the ball to left center as good as anybody.
On the inside corner, first strike. Nick Swisher on deck. 1-0 bottom half of the first. Yankees on top of the Braves. Fouled off to the seats. 1-2 now to Freeman.
And I'm wondering about seeing that changeup from Severino. It is so good, has such great life on it, good depth to it as well. You got to think it's a pitch that he's going to want to show to some of these left-handed hitters. Looks like they're calling for it right here. He shook to it, so you know he wanted to throw it.
There it is. Freeman lays off it.
And you see his reaction. And there was a fastball earlier that he thought was a strike in the Cameron Maybin at bat that he did not get called. And so now we're going to see that poise tested a little bit, because it looks like it's going to be a little bit tighter strike zone for this rookie. I'm thinking that's pretty close to a strike and getting called, but not in that situation. But Severino thought so.
2-2s in the dirt now. 3 balls and 2 strikes. The home plate umpire is Mike Estabrook.
I tell you, I like that he shook to that too, because think about this. Brian McCann is behind the plate. He knows Freddie Freeman as good as anybody. He knows what the game plan should be. And Severino felt so strongly about throwing that changeup, even though he didn't get the call. I love that he wanted to do it. We're going to see another one here, 3-2.
Runner goes, 3-2, ball 4. So first and second, 1 out here for the Braves. Let's take a look at the defense for the Yankees. In the outfield from left to right, Brett Gardner, Jacoby Ellsbury, Carlos Beltran. Around the horn, the infield is Greg Bird at first, Stephen Drew at second, Didi Gregorius at short, Chase Headley at third, and Brian McCann behind the plate. And now a former Yankee, Nick Swisher, the switch-hitting left fielder, will face the rookie right-hander.
Swisher, of course, acquired from the Cleveland Indians, where things were not working out there. He'd been hurt on the disabled list. They gave him a pretty good contract, but things did not work out, and now getting kind of a second life here, an opportunity to play in Atlanta.
Fastball's high and outside. Swisher, overall 206, 5 home runs, 19 RBIs. You see what he's done thus far with the Braves. Good power numbers, not a good average. Foul tipped into the mitt of McCann. 1-1.
When Swisher signed that 4-year, $56 million deal with the Cleveland Indians, there was a lot of excitement surrounding that organization. And that was back, of course, in 2013, just before the 2013 season. But the Indians just had not been able to get it going, and made a lot more sense based on where they are to move on from Nick Swisher.
Ground ball, second base, Drew to Gregorius to first, and a 4-6-3 inning-ending double play. We've played one here in Atlanta. The Yankees to the Braves, 1-0. And 1-0 Yankees lead the Braves, and time now for our keys to the game, brought to you by Ford. CJ, what are we looking for?
Well, I tell you, and I swear, I promise you that I wrote these before the game started, but it was about preaching patience for the Yankee hitters, knowing Matt Whistler has a tendency to pick at the corners. Of course, we saw the 2 walks in the first inning. And for the Braves, we know where their season is going, but they have a chance to play spoiler from the team. They're not going into the postseason. They're not going to make the postseason this year, but they certainly can spoil it for some other teams around the league.
Yeah, if you think about what the Braves have coming up, Gregorius fouls that one away. So no balls and 2 strikes to Didi Gregorius, who's batting .260, 7 home runs and 40 RBIs. And oh, by the way, last night, all Gregorius did was go, I don't know, 4 for 5 and drive in 6 runs. You know, just a so-so night.
Well, I think the patience that the Yankees have showed in him has really paid off. Early on, he struggled. I know you got to see him early on in April, and things didn't look right, not just offensively, but also defensively, which actually was kind of a surprise. But Joe Girardi said we stuck with him, we believed in him, and now they're starting to see the dividends of that patience.
Gregorius straightaway center field. Maben has a beat on it for the first out. Well, you talk about this Braves team being able to play spoiler. They will play against the Miami Marlins, then they're at Washington. They have a 4-game series against the Mets. They've got a 3-game series against the Blue Jays.
The Blue Jays, that's going to be fun for that. They have a young pitching staff here. We talked about it, the second youngest in all of Major League Baseball. That'll be a good test, though. I mean, that's a great way to learn trial by fire. But that Blue Jays lineup right now is, I wouldn't want to be a part of that if I'm a young pitcher.
Edwin Encarnacion, 3 home runs today, including a grand slam. Steven Drew steps in. And the breaking ball misses outside. 2 balls and no strikes to Drew. The 2-0 from Whistler. In the air, left field, Swisher. Easy play for him. 2 away. Time for our first game break. Let's go back to LA and check in with Ryan Field. Ryan, thank you. I think Kevin Kiermaier, he's feeling more flexible after doing that split on the wall.
That was unbelievable the other night. That guy is a great athlete. A lot of people don't know much about him, I'm sure, because he's playing in Tampa, but a lot of upside as the Tampa Bay Rays try to get things figured out. Kevin Kiermaier is a player worth watching.
Let's see what Severino does in his first major league at bat.
Well, he looks really comfortable, doesn't he? Look at that stance.
The stance might look comfortable, but that step was towards third base and not near towards the pitcher. And now Bethancourt's going to go out and speak to him and say, hey, Matt, listen, we've got a guy up here who is stepping out of the box. Just throw it over and see if he can hit it.
And it's interesting, too, because these two guys, Whistler and Bethancourt, have never been together. They have never worked a game together. And so that's always kind of an interesting combination as you see that. That's what we call stepping in the bucket. That is the absolute definition of it. But I love the toe tap. You know, and I asked Joe Girardi, too, how do you feel about your guy? I mean, this is, you know, a lot of people excited, the organization excited about Luis Severino. Are you okay with him hitting? He said, absolutely. I have no concerns at all about him hitting. This kid's a good athlete.
Good hack. Driven to right. Markakis going back. Still back, and he makes the catch to take a hit away from Severino.
Kidding me?
Nearly extra bases in his first big league at bat. We go to the bottom of that second. 1-0 Yankees. Gave it a ride. Watch this. It's a nice play by Nick Markakis, by the way.
Well, I'm thinking he looked like he got jammed a little bit. We saw the early swing, what was just ugly. And you see Nick Markakis almost a little bit of panic and surprise. The fact that he drove that ball opposite field Here in Atlanta, this is not a small ballpark, and you see the smiles, and everyone is absolutely shocked. Like, what just happened? Did our pitcher really just drive that ball to the track in right field?
You know, it's funny. A couple weeks ago, I had the Dodgers and Pirates, and Francisco Liriano hit a home run opposite field. And we were interviewing Chris Stewart, and I said, "What'd you guys say in the bench?" And he said, "It's about time."
Yeah.
Adonis Garcia will lead things off here in the second. And the first pitch on the outside corner for a strike.
Pitchers will talk a big game about how good they are at hitting. The reality of the situation is most of us are not.
You saw Garcia's numbers, 246, 6 home runs, 10 RBIs. And he's behind the count, no balls and 2 strikes. Now, with that said, Stewart did say that the reason why it's about time is because he puts them in the river at PNC Park routinely during batting practice.
No longer a 5 o'clock hitter.
0-2, line drive to first, and there is Bird for the first out. 1 away. We flash back. Well, what you? Hey, you couldn't hit.
That's lefty on lefty at the Braves alumni softball game. Steve Avery serving me up one. That's to the track with the softball. That's a bad jog, though. Gosh darn it, that's a bad jog.
I got to be honest. I mean, I'm impressed with the swing right there.
Andrew Jones, you see there, he was pretty impressed. Chipper Jones hit a couple that day. The Braves do a outstanding job here in bringing alumni back. I only played here for a couple of months, and they still invite me, which is very cool of them to do, and it's a fun weekend for Braves fans. All the names come back. The big guys, the ones that they really want to see, are here.
What are you saying? You did not get the biggest ovation?
Surprisingly, no. My kids clapped for me. I think I heard my wife yell my name in the stands, but no, that's about it.
No balls, 1 strike to Jace Peterson. The question, though, really is, did the family leave the ballpark happy?
I think so. I mean, listen, I hit a home run. I didn't give up any runs. I was smart enough not to pitch. My wife's seen enough of that in my career, so none of that stuff. We see John Smoltz was here. Greg Maddux was playing third in that game when I hit that home run. It's such a cool event. And like I said, the Braves alumni staff, or the Braves staff here, does such a great job with bringing their alumni back. Greg McMichael, the former relief pitcher, heads up that alumni association and just does a fantastic job.
The 2-1 to Peterson. Low and outside. Now 3 balls and a strike.
Still waiting on my phone call for the Yankees for Old Timers Day. It might be a while.
Give it some time. That should be your goal. How many Old Timers Day games can you play in? High and outside for ball 4. A 1-out walk to Jace Peterson. Second walk of the game issued by Severino. And Severino, in his last start against Cleveland, walked 4 batters in 6 innings. And that was a career high. Already walked 2 through an inning and a third. And here's Christian Bethancourt. The catcher hitting 188, a home run, 11 RBIs. This is the one guy right now as we head towards September that the Braves want to see what they have with him. He's going to get the majority of the catching. A.J. Pierzynski's had a great year. 38-year-old catcher Pierzynski is hitting 293 with 7 home runs and 40 RBIs. But now is the time where you're out of the race. Let's see what the young kid can do. Is he that catcher of the future for the Braves?
Well, at 23 years old, they're going to find out. It's the right move, and I kind of feel bad for AJ because he came in here probably thinking he was going to be a backup, get a little bit of playing time, maybe a couple of times a week, and he actually took over the starting job. And I like the way the Braves handled it. They sent Bethancourt out. They did not just hand him the job. A.J. Pierzynski essentially took it from him. But now that they're out of it, you're absolutely right. This is now the time to get a look at your younger players. Yes, they still want to be competitive, but they have to figure out who is Christian Bethancourt. Is he a guy that we can count on? Can we pencil him in to be our starter next year? Is he destined to be a backup? Whatever it may be, he now has the rest of this season to prove that to the Atlanta Braves.
No balls and 2 strikes to Bethancourt with Peterson on at first. And he goes down swinging. That's the first strikeout for Severino. 2 outs here in the second.
Severino just overpowers Bethancourt in this at bat. It was first a fastball in, trying to go away there, but he has the kind of stuff where he can make mistakes in the strike zone and get away with it. That fastball ends up being elevated a little bit, but Bethancourt no chance at catching up to it.
2 away now for Andrelton Simmons, the Gold Glove shortstop for this Braves team. Good first pitch there from Severino. No balls and 1 strike. Simmons on the season, 263, 3 home runs, 32 RBIs. And I don't know if there's a player in baseball, at least a shortstop, who has more fun in the field than Simmons.
We talked about it earlier when we saw the back pick. He loves finding base runners that are sleeping, catching guys off guard. He actually likes to play possum sometimes. You'll see his body language like nothing's going on, and then see him make that quick throw with that relay throw. He's got an unbelievable arm, probably one of the best of any infielder in Major League Baseball. He'll throw behind guys all day long, loves getting that cut and throwing guys out at home plate. He's a fun guy to watch in the field.
Ground ball, third base. Headley fields a nice hop, throws across, and that'll do it here in the second. We're through 2 in Atlanta, and it's 1-0 Yankees. Johnny Gomes, he was out in the bullpen. Yeah, that's right, he's warming up. Runs in. And then the first batter he faces, Chris Young, takes him deep. But he tips the cap. He has respect for that. And then this is what he'll keep. A strikeout, his first strikeout. And Johnny Gomes will now join us from the dugout. Johnny, thanks for joining us. You know, usually we want to talk hitting with you, but we have to talk pitching. I mean, how was it out there last night for you?
It was a first, to say the least. I know a lot of guys up here, you know, whatever position they play, they, you know, pitched in high school, pitched in Little League. You know, the right fielder with a good arm, pitch in college. That is literally the first batter I've ever faced in my baseball life, career, everything. I've obviously thrown off mound, you know, just messing around, but I've never faced a live hitter at any level.
It was unbelievable. I have about 100 questions I want to ask you. But first things first, how does your arm feel today?
You know what? I'm all right. I'm all right. And I think that's because, you know, just on my own, I had no desire to dig down and blow the ball by anybody or do any tricks, light up the gun. You know, the fun things that you might want to try and do. I had no desire to do any of that. But get up there and get out of there as fast as possible.
All right, what about the sprint in from the bullpen? I was actually watching the game on television. I tweeted this out. I thought it was a rookie mistake. You're not a young man anymore. Were you tired when you got to the mound?
Nah, man, I'm a well-oiled machine. You know? don't let the age get to you. Yeah, I keep this thing greased up.
All right, now the delivery I got to get to. A lot of people were talking Fernando. I saw a little Nomo in there. But I was thinking your former teammate, Johnny Cueto, who was that delivery an ode to last night?
Yeah, well, you got to go back to the ambassador all the way to Louis
yes.
Tion. You know, a lot of people, you know, give it to Cueto or Nomo, but I had to go all the way back to the ambassador, and that's Tion.
1 ball, no strikes here to Brett Gardner. 1 away. Top of the 3rd. Ellsbury struck out. We're speaking with Johnny Gomes. Gardner rips one to first, and there's Freeman for 2 away. So, Johnny, you said your arm feels pretty good today.
Yep.
I was really impressed with how you really sped up the pace of play. If every pitcher threw balls as quickly as you did, we'd have games in like maybe under an hour.
Yeah, you probably have some high ERAs, though.
Well, do you know what your ERA is by any chance?
18.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what my XFIP is, though. I don't.
Well, you didn't have any walks, but you did have a home run, so that kind of balances it out a little bit. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we saw a steady diet of fastballs from you. Were there any off-speed pitches in there yesterday, or you want to save that for the second time around?
No off-speed. Christian, the catcher, tonight, he came out and looked at me kind of with the look like, what do you got? And I said, no. No signs, no location, 4-seam right down the middle.
And your reaction to the home run was fantastic. And when I saw you kind of watching, first I thought maybe we were going to have a little beef, right? I thought that Chris Young maybe was going to hear a little bit from you, and then it turned into a tip of the cap. We saw the physical reaction, but what was your internal reaction when he hit that ball?
It was more of an offensive side, I mean, that's kind of like the reaction you get, as a hitter in the bench. And, I mean, whether you're throwing it up 72 or 92 or whatever, I mean, it's hard to hit a ball, that far. It's hard to hit a home run, whoever's on the mound. So it was more of an appreciation to his swing. But, yeah, I wouldn't recommend too many pitchers doing that.
Missing outside, ball 4 here to Beltran. The 3rd walk of the game thus far issued by Whistler. 2-out walk brings up Brian McCann. Again, we are speaking with Johnny Gomes, who last night came in his only career pitching appearance. You say at any level in baseball, but I will ask you this.
Yes.
Did you ever pitch in wiffle ball?
Yeah, we used to have some wiffle ball games, with the garbage can being the strike zone in the middle of the street. Yeah, I got some wiffle ball background. And here we are, Brian McCann, one of my victims right here. Got him out.
McCann, he walked his first time up, now asks for time.
Well, you now have a pitching tab on Fangraphs or any other website that you go to. It's not going to be all batting, and since you brought it up, I looked for you. Your xFIP is actually only 6.91, so that cuts your ERA almost by a third. So the 18 ERA does not tell the story of who Johnny Gomes is as a pitcher.
That's what I'm going to be taking to arbitration and free agency for now in my career. It's got to help. It's got to help.
Well, we were talking with Freddie Gonzalez, and we asked, were you the guy that if they needed to use a position player, you were the one? He told us that you actually went to him last week at Wrigley and said, I can pitch.
Yeah, I went to him in Wrigley when the game was kind of out of hand a little bit. And, it's not really on my bucket list, to tell you the truth. I don't want to pitch. I've never had the desire to pitch. If I do pitch a game, it's out of control on the bad side. I'm not the guy who has it on my bucket list, something I was planning on doing, but it was more of on the side of just giving our bullpen 3 outs of a load taken off. And I went to him again yesterday in the 2nd and told him I'm still available.
McCann pops one foul towards the Yankee dugout. That'll reach the seat. Stays no balls and 2 strikes. Just in all honesty, how much fun was it for you?
It was fun looking back on it. It was hard, on the other side, the Yankees. Brian McCann comes up. Last thing I want to do is hit him. Last thing I want to do is, with the shenanigans get in the way of, what's in between the lines of a big league ball game. Respect the game at the same time. I kind of wanted to cherish that moment. So it was actually a lot of pressure to not hurt anyone, not to embarrass myself, get out of the inning. But had a couple of shenanigans mixed in there to enjoy the moment.
Well, and you get the strikeout. This one, too, real quick for me, because I thought the pitch before was a strike.
Right.
Was there any part of you going strike 4 as you were walking off the mound?
Yeah, I mean, if he wasn't going to give me that, I knew I had to throw it right down the middle. And, even the professionalism of the umpire right there, not calling that, because their at-bats count, too.
Pop up to shallow right. There is Garcia to make the catch. Johnny, thanks for joining us, and thanks for having fun with that last night, too. We all enjoyed it.
All right, guys. I appreciate it.
1-0, Yanks on top. Already, Joe, an early lead, 1-0. What has been the key for you guys this year to get off to such a good start in that first inning?
Well, I think it's the guys who are hitting at the top of the order and what Ellsbury and Gardner have been able to do and the speed that they have and being able to, to score on doubles from first. And we have power that comes up as well. So we're really built for our ballpark, and these guys are exciting.
Joe, I asked you before the game about Severino and hitting and whether you had any concerns. That fly out to right field to the track, did you kind of get a little wide-eyed when you saw that?
Well, I wasn't surprised because I saw him hitting in the cage and on the field the last couple of weeks. If we were at Yankee Stadium, maybe he's got his first home run. So he swings it well. He's very athletic, and so far so good on the mound.
Joe, just real quick, I know we talked before, but if you can just give an update on Mark Teixeira, what you're thinking with him.
Yeah, I mean, it's really day to day, and we just got to, he'll let us know when he's ready to go. I mean, he's had a hard time running, and that's a problem. If you're a baseball player, you got to be able to run, and he's just sore, and hopefully it won't be too much longer.
Joe, thanks so much. Good luck.
Thanks, guys.
One away here, bottom half of the third. Nick Markakis will step in against Severino.
What about that line out from Whistler?
The pitchers, man,
swinging it here.
Rookies, the young guys, they don't know any better. Well, that or they're not that far removed from actually hitting.
Yes, it's a good point. High school wasn't that long ago for a couple of these guys. Now, interesting, too, to see now seeing that pitch right there from Severino. Fastball looked like it was just off the plate. He gets the call. There was also one last inning. So now maybe that zone's starting to open up just a little bit.
Good pitch there. No balls and 2 strikes to Markakis, who singled on the first pitch that he saw to lead off for the Braves. Entered this game hitting .300. Just 2 home runs on the season. 48 RBIs. 0-2, just sticks the bat out. Tough play. Headley bare hands. And he just does get him. Good play by Chase Headley.
Major league third baseman make this play look so easy, and it is not. For Chase Headley, as he comes in on this ball, his only play is the barehanded, and you see how he goes wide hand as much as he can and still trying to get a good grip on the ball to get enough velocity on the throw to get Nick Markakis by a half a step. Part of the reason the Yankees brought Chase Headley back this year is because of the great glove. Their defense all around much improved than what it's been over the last couple of years, and that is a terrific play by Chase Headley.
With that said, Headley has not had a problem fielding the ball, but he has had a problem throwing the ball this year. 20 errors on the year for Headley, and that's one of those right there where he doesn't have time to think. It's just a reaction play.
And those are the best ones for fielders, are the best one for pitchers. It's when you have all day that things can get a little tricky, and a lot of times that's when we see the errors.
A broken bat foul for Cameron Maybin, and he's behind in the count 0-2. One nothing, bottom half of the third. Justin Kutcher alongside C.J. Nitkowski here in Atlanta.
It's always scary as you see the top half of that bat kind of coming at Severino a little bit like a helicopter. Luckily, it wasn't directly at him.
Severino looking for a second strikeout. And he thought he had it, missing outside, 1-2.
This is probably the most animated we have seen Severino in just his 5th big league start. We haven't seen a lot the times that I have watched him, but those close calls, he's letting the umpire know he's not happy with it.
McCann can't hang on, stays 1 ball and 2 strikes to Cameron Maybin. The Yankees had a plan all season with Severino. Limit those innings in the minor leagues, stretch him out so that he's available for August, September. Check swing. Severino shows off the athleticism. A 1-2-3 inning worked by the rookie right-hander. We played 3 here at Turner Field. It's still 1-0 New York. Here in the fourth, Greg Bird, Chase Headley, Didi Gregorius to face Matt Wisler. And the first pitch fastball is outside from Wisler to Bird, who walked his first time up. In their first strike, 1-1. Fouled on the third base line into the seats. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Greg Bird. Bird, Severino, Aaron Judge, an outfielder in the minor leagues for the Yankees. They're that next group of players the Yankees have high hopes for.
Well, this is what Brian Cashman has wanted all along, is to try to change the mantra of the New York Yankees. I'm not sure they can ever get under that luxury tax threshold of $187 million. They continue to pay it at a 50% rate. But getting younger, more controllable guys, trying to go back to really what kind of spawned their championship run when they had, I don't say the core 4 or the 5. Don't forget about Bernie Williams to go with Mariano and Jeter and Andy Pettitte and Jorge Posada, to have guys that you're bringing through your system to be the core of the group. Then you add the pieces with the great resources that they have, and they're trying to reset while still staying competitive, and it looks like they're on their way to doing that.
Bird rips one to right field. Markakis fell, but he's able to get back up, and Bird will stop there at first, a leadoff single. These two guys, Bird and Severino, were the untouchables at the trade deadline. The number 1 and number 4 overall prospect in the Yankees organization.
That's certainly not how the Yankees used to operate. Go back even, say, 5-10 years ago. Both of those guys are on the move and trying to land David Price, or trying to get Johnny Cueto and get them that one piece that hopefully would get them that championship. That's how the Yankees always operated. And Brian Cashman, not want to say he put a complete stop to it, but he wanted to change it a little bit and trying to hold on to some of these young players, because they probably got tired of seeing some guys leave and go do well, or investing in guys and paying huge contracts for guys that were not helping toward the end of those deals. And so, like I said, it looks like they have a pretty good crop of young players. They still have to get up here and stick and be productive.
Headley pops one into left field. Swisher is there. Bird goes back to first, 1 away. And really, in today's game, the economics have changed so much, because guys used to be able to get big contracts in their mid-30s to late 30s. That's not the case anymore. You've got them early, up until they're about 31, and a lot of teams don't want to pay for what they've done in the past few years, knowing that in the future you're not going to get that same production.
Baseball executives have gotten a lot smarter. They understand that the peak of a player is going to come sometime between 26 to 29 years old, maybe into 30, and so they'll push guys through the system a little bit quicker, get them to the big leagues a little bit quicker, hoping that they can capitalize on those prime years while they still have those players under control.
Gregorius looks at the first pitch for a ball. Flew out to center field his first time up. Didi Gregorius, he was a big acquisition in the offseason for the Yankees and Brian Cashman. Obviously, Derek Jeter retiring. Who would fill in at shortstop? They acquired Gregorius, and like you said before, struggled early. Not really a surprise to anybody. But I think what kind of gave him confidence was Girardi kept him in the lineup the entire time. He was never looking over his shoulder. Got a chance to play. And now his numbers, 260, 7 home runs, 40 RBIs. They'd sign up for that any day.
Absolutely. And he plays really good defense. And this is probably one of the most impatient markets in all of Major League Baseball. And so it's odd to see a player get that opportunity. But they gave it to Didi Gregorius, and it's worked out.
Peterson back on the outfield grass, makes the over-the-shoulder catch. 2 away here in the fourth. As Gregorius goes back to first, the guy who could have been the shortstop for the Yankees, Stephen Drew, steps in, and Drew, of course, has been the predominant everyday second baseman for the Yankees.
And kind of an odd year, right? You see the low batting average at 194, the on base coming into this game just 265, but it's 15 home runs from your second baseman, who's going to give you some pretty good defense. You can live with that if you're getting offensive production from other positions, and the Yankees, the way that they're built, can absolutely sustain it. You're not happy that he's hitting 194, but you can sustain that because of the defense and the power he brings to the table.
First pitch changeup is on the outside corner for a strike, and I think if you look at a guy like Stephen Drew and Kendrys Morales last year, Morales putting up some really good numbers this year with Kansas City, it makes what Alex Rodriguez has done this year even more impressive. Missing the entire year, coming back and putting up the numbers that he's done this year at 40 years old.
Yeah, certainly things have slowed down for Alex as of late, but nobody knew what you were going to get. And there were certain fans and people calling for his release before spring training even started, which of course would have been a huge mistake. But I had said all along, you have to understand this about Alex Rodriguez. I played with him in New York. I played with him in Texas. He has unbelievable work ethic. Of course, we know he has incredible talent. Now give him a year off with the resources he has, and you put all those things together, and you might actually get production out of him, and that's exactly what's happened this year.
Bethancourt in foul territory makes the catch. A leadoff single goes for naught. We're through 3.5, 1-0 Yankees. Our bus has made its way to Atlanta. The Harbros are off the bus here in Atlanta. And those Michigan students, well, they are familiar to college football. They're getting ready for when Jim Harbaugh coaches his first game when Michigan takes on Utah. Coming up on Thursday, you can watch that game right here on Fox Sports 1 with coverage starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. Jim Harbaugh, of course, was with the San Francisco 49ers, signed as the head coach of his alma mater. And it's been the talk of college football ever since. I believe those guys have been standing up this entire game.
Is there a lot of partying going on in that bus, or were they drawing up plays?
They're wearing the khakis, the outfit. I don't know how many of those outfits they must pack. I mean, there's got to be at least 4 or 5 pair of khakis for each one, right?
I mean, I love the game faces, too. These guys are dead serious. They're not just here goofing around. They are bringing their full Jim Harbaugh.
3-1 to Freddie Freeman leading off here in the bottom half of the 4th for the Braves. Freeman walked his first time up. Ground ball first. Easy play for Greg Bird. 1 away.
And in that 3-1 count, Freddie Freeman decided he was going to try to pull that ball, knowing he was going to get a fastball because of the good velocity and the good movement. Rolled right over the top of it.
Nick Swisher will now step in. Swisher grounded into an inning-ending 4-6-3 double play back in the first. .91 for Severino. Good movement on that pitch.
Yeah, absolute life on it. You see the late break on that slider as he threw it right there. This guy's got a great young live arm.
Swisher can't hold up. 0-2. That was 97. The hardest we've seen yet from Severino.
He's got 4 swings and misses so far through this game, and they are all on fastballs.
Just 1 strikeout thus far. The 0-2. Make it 2 strikeouts. 2 away here in the 4th. Time for a game break. Let's go back and check in with Ryan Field. All right, thank you very much, Ryan. The Pittsburgh Pirates entered today 3.5 back of St. Louis in that Central. Garcia pops one foul down the right field line. 0-1. Garcia lined out to first his first time up. But how about that NL Central with St. Louis, Pittsburgh, the Cubs?
Without a doubt, for me, both of the wild cards are coming out of the National League Central. The Pittsburgh Pirates, a great team. And what that does is it puts a lot of pressure on the teams in the National League West. Of course, the Giants and the Dodgers as they battle it out. And now in the National League East, even though the New York Mets are starting to pull away, nobody is going to be catching, whether it be the Giants or the Washington Nationals, catching either the Chicago Cubs or the Pittsburgh Pirates.
I agree. 1 ball, 2 strikes here to Garcia. Severino trying to work back-to-back 1, 2, 3 innings.
I got to tell you, the Yankees are probably thrilled with his pitch count right now, sitting at 50 here in the bottom of the 4th inning. And if he can get out of this here, got to start thinking he possibly could get into the 7th for the first time in his big league career. Has never gotten more than 6 innings as a New York Yankee.
Larry Rothschild, the pitching coach for the Yankees. I don't know if he gets enough credit for what he has done with all these young pitchers.
He's done a great job, and he is kind of an unassuming guy, not looking for any credit. Maybe of all people, Nate Eovaldi, the job that he has done with him has been pretty incredible. You take a guy out of Miami with a great arm or triple-digit fastball, but the issue with him was never being able to be consistent enough or generating enough swings and misses, and they've turned him into a very, very good, probably number 3 starter on a winning team. He's not necessarily getting more strikeouts, but what he's doing now is he's not letting up nearly as many hits as he was a year ago in Florida.
The 2-2 to Garcia. Missing low and outside. Now a full count. That's another move that kind of flew under the radar. The Yankees getting Eovaldi.
I think a lot of people were kind of wondering, was that the move that they wanted to make? Did it make sense? If he wasn't getting it done in the National League, do you want to take that fastball and put it into the American League East, and would there be bigger problems? Because you're going from a nice place to pitch in Miami to going to a much more difficult place to pitch in New York. But the adjustment has been relatively smooth, and the walks have gone up just a little bit, but he is getting the results, and he's getting run support too, which he had not gotten when he was in Florida.
3-2 in the air, straightaway center field. Ellsbury going back, looks up. This is off the wall. Bare hands it, throws it towards third, and now Severino goes to cover. A 2-out double for Garcia, his 8th double of the year.
And probably the hardest hit ball that we have seen so far today, as we see Severino on a changeup. Looked like he was trying to get it down. The ball stayed up over the plate. Garcia was all over it. The ball was loud. I thought I had a chance to get out of here.
So did Garcia. Two outs, runner in scoring position now for Jace Peterson, who walked his first time up. The Braves trying to tie it up here in the bottom half of the 4th. High and outside with the first pitch from Severino.
You see that pitch there at 90 miles an hour. That is his slider, which is unbelievable. And sometimes he'll get a little bit more depth on it, but there's not a lot of movement. But to do that at 90, it's almost like a Mariano type cutter. Not to compare him there, because that's not what it is. But to see that pitch with that movement at that velocity is incredible.
Down low, 2 balls and no strikes. You mentioned just before he was at 50, now at 57 pitches. Behind in the count, 2 balls and no strikes here to Peterson. Fouled straight back, good hack by the second baseman.
It was a very comfortable swing in the 2-0 count, thinking he's probably getting a fastball. and Jace Peterson decides that he's going to go ahead and let it fly, and unfortunately couldn't quite catch up with it.
Both guys, Severino and Whistler, can get that radar gun up over 95 miles per hour. 2-1. There was a slider. 2 balls and 2 strikes. And really, from this angle, it looks like it's a cutter.
It is. And even when you watch it on television, we have a nice straight behind home plate here view, which I love, so you can see the movement really well. It's not a ton of movement. It's only a little bit, but I've watched him earlier. I've watched him in the futures game where you can actually get more depth on that pitch. And for me, that even becomes tougher to hit. Whenever you can change planes up to down, north to south, it is a lot harder for a hitter to make contact.
Second straight full count for Severino. Gave up the double off the center field wall by Garcia. The payoff pitch. Slider misses high and outside. First and second, 2 outs. And now Bethancourt coming up.
We keep seeing this breaking ball kind of finish up and away, and that's not exactly where he wants to throw it. Obviously, this one misses by a lot, but you see Brian McCann's glove come up where he prefer to have those as closer to knee high or thigh high. But Severino, you wonder, I just talked about the pitch count and how good he looks, but it looks like we're seeing almost a little bit of fatigue from him because we're seeing a little bit of emotion, and we're seeing him leave some pitches up in the zone.
His 3rd walk of the game. Again, he issued 4 and 6 innings in his last start against Cleveland. Struck out Bethancourt the first time he faced him. One of 2 strikeout victims thus far. There is a slider. 0-1. Bethancourt, since coming back, he is 1 for 12 since being recalled from AAA. Did he hold up? The appeal to first. Ed Hickok says no, he went around. 0-2.
Well, that's a good call and an easy one, and you'd love to see a home plate umpire go ahead and ask for that check. A lot of times, I feel like we've seen a lot of those arguments this year where home plate umpires are not willing to look, but this is easily a swing and a really good call by Ed Hickok when he gets a chance.
The 0-2 from Severino, and he gets him swinging again. The Braves strand 2 here in the 4th. 1-0 Yankees lead through 4. flash back to August 14th. It was the Atlanta recognition of John Smoltz Hall of Fame induction. And here he is working with Matt Wisler. And he really was working with the entire pitching staff. And I don't know about you, CJ, but I can sit here and watch this stuff all day long. How great must it be for the Braves staff to be able to have a guy like Smoltz? Lavin's done it during spring training, to come back and share their wisdom with these guys as Severino grounds one on the first pitch to Simmons. One away. And look at Severino hustle down the line.
He is destined to get that first hit. He is an American League pitcher, and he understands that the opportunities are going to be few and far between. So who knows, we may see a base hit before the night is over. But talking about that opportunity, anytime you have a chance to spend even a little bit of time with a Hall of Fame pitcher, one as accomplished as John Smoltz is, one who overcame unbelievable injuries, to do both roles, to go be a closer, to be a starter, and to do them both at an all-star level. It's a great opportunity. I worked out with him for a few years in the off seasons. We live in the same area, and to sit there and talk with a guy like that about pitching is such an incredible opportunity. And for Matt Wisler, talking to Freddie Gonzalez today, he's a bright guy. He's a guy that likes talking about mechanics. He likes getting into what he's doing pitch to pitch. Sometimes that can be a problem if you overthink it, but you know that he is a sponge in that situation where he can listen and soak up advice from John Smoltz. It's a great opportunity. You could see that he was trying to take advantage of it as much as possible.
1 ball, 1 strike to Ellsbury. Doubled and scored back in the first, struck out in the third. Outside and low. 2 balls and 1 strike. There they are. Smoltz, Glavine, Maddox.
I'll always have a little bit of a bone to pick with John, though, for wanting to play that extra year. You remember when a lot of people forget he went to Boston, played a little bit with the Cardinals. Had he not done that, Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz, Bobby Cox all going to the Hall of Fame the same exact year. That would have been a pretty cool moment. But I understand you want to get that last year. You got to make sure you get all of it out of your system. But that would have been a sight to see.
Outside, 3-2. You know, it's funny you say that, and then you watch him in that video, and I bet you he can still throw close to 90 miles per hour.
Well, the way this year has gone, especially a little bit in the bullpen for Freddie Gonzalez with the injuries and some of the struggles that they have had, I'm sure he would like to have John Smoltz and probably asked him that question. Although I don't think he could have pitched in those black loafers he was wearing to go with the shorts.
You know, I would not put anything past Smoltz.
That's a good point. That's a good point. But, yeah, what a great opportunity for these guys to be able to spend that kind of time with him in the bullpen. And he loves doing it. He is a guy that loves paying it forward, loves talking about baseball, loves helping young players.
And Ellsbury works a 1-out walk on base for the second time tonight. You talk about Smoltz paying it forward as Brett Gardner steps in. He's one of the players that Brian McCann credits for really learning the game as a Brave. Chipper Jones, John Smoltz being able to pick their brains. And it's because of those 2 players, and obviously others, that McCann is the player and leader that he is today.
A lot of people make the assumption that just because a player is older and he's been around that he likes mentoring young players. That is not always the case, but you get around guys like you just mentioned in Chipper, John Smoltz. Alex Rodriguez is also one of those guys. He loves working with young players. He loves spending time with guys like Didi Gregorius, again, paying it forward and trying to help them with their process of becoming everyday major leaguers and doing it at the best level they possibly can. It is an absolute treat when you're able to get around big leaguers like that.
1 ball, no strikes to Gardner. McCann now one of those leaders in the clubhouse for the Yankees. Gardner is 0 for 2, a ground out to second and a line out to first. Ellsbury 17 for 24 in stolen bases this year. And the fastball's on the outside corner. 1 ball and 1 strike.
You see Brett Gardner looking back, and I would agree with him if the question was you were not calling that, or the statement was you weren't calling that in the first inning. But we are seeing home plate umpire Mike Estabrook opening up the corners just a little bit in this game.
A look back to first. Ellsbury's back and standing up, and I think this must be the 3rd or 4th trip of the wave around the ballpark.
It was a great crowd here in Atlanta, and things have slowed down as they have struggled 20 games under 500. But the Yankees in town, and we talked about those transplants that like being down here to cheer those Yankees on. But this is a great ballpark. Only 1 more season left after this one at the TED. But when it is full, it's a beautiful place.
Again, a throw back to first.
SunTrust Ballpark will open up in 2017, moving out of downtown Atlanta. And as we watch this team and the moves that they make, it seems like that's kind of what the goal is, to make sure that once they get there in the next year and a half, that they kind of hit the ground running and they're going to be a contender again.
The 1-1 to Gardner. High and outside, 2-1. And I know we've talked about it before when doing Braves games, but I give a lot of credit to John Hart and what he has done since coming here as the GM. He made some moves that really, frankly, had to be made, but they were difficult to make.
It's always easier when you're the new guy, right? Just like we talked about A.J. Preller, you come in. We saw it with the Dodgers as well with Andrew Friedman. You come in, and it's easier to make those bold moves when there weren't your moves to begin with.
Peterson by the wall, can't make the catch. A good effort. A long run for Jace Peterson.
As Jace Peterson gets near that wall, he knows that tarp is there, but you're never sure exactly, are you at the tarp, are you at the sign, and it's a little bit uneven over there. Seen some great defensive plays this year. How about the play Anthony Rizzo made going into the stands over the tarp? Jace Peterson, that one was a little bit further run than Rizzo had at first in Wrigley.
The Rizzo play was one of my favorite plays of the year.
What about the Juan Perez catch in center field with San Francisco? To see him get on the wall and kind of pause.
Yep.
Was incredible.
Stands Gardner up, 3 balls and 2 strikes. One away here in the 5th. Yankees leading 1-0 over the Braves. The Yankees trail the Blue Jays by 2 games in the AL East to win here tonight. It's back to a game and a half. Carlos Beltran on deck. The Yankees got a run in the first on a wild pitch with the bases loaded by Whistler. Runner goes, the throw down by Bethancourt. The tag is made by Simmons, and they call Ellsbury out. Let's see if they're going to appeal this and ask for a review. You can see
that's Rob Thompson, the bench coach, right there, making that call back. Joe Girardi waiting now at the top step, and this is an unbelievably athletic play. First of all, the fastball away, a good pitch to handle for Bethancourt. The throw starts to run a little bit, and it looked like to me that he got the tag in. And I'll tell you what, most shortstops do not make that play.
Again, how much fun is it to watch Andrelton Simmons at shortstop?
Incredible. I mean, that ball is tailing away from him as well, and he has the know-it-all to get the tag down on top of it.
Strike him out, throw him out, double play here in the 5th. Run thus far. It's Andrelton Simmons leading things off here against Severino. And the first pitch is outside for ball one. Simmons applied that tag to catch Jacoby Ellsbury, trying to steal second to end that top of the fifth inning. And now he's ahead in the count, 2 balls and no strikes. Big swing, fouled straight back by Simmons.
Andrelton Simmons, and we see this a lot now in Major League Baseball, but he swings as hard as anybody, even though he is a guy that hits near the bottom of the order for the Atlanta Braves, hitting 8th tonight, hitting .263, just 3 home runs, but huge swings, and it does not change regardless of the count.
The 2-1. Fouled back again, 2 balls and 2 strikes. Kevin Seitzer, the hitting coach for the Braves. Freddie Gonzalez gave him a lot of credit for the relationship between he and Cameron Maybin for Maybin's turnaround. 2-2, caught looking. Strikeout number 4 for Severino, his first looking.
And he knew it right away, and he puts his fastball at 97 miles an hour on the corner. So much so that Andrelton Simmons, who loves to swing, swings as much as anybody, could not pull the trigger on this high velocity fastball. And you see just a little bit of movement as it comes back across the outside corner.
Now the pitcher Whistler at the plate. And the first pitch fastball is low and outside. Whistler lined out to first his first time up. Ahead in the count, 2 balls and no strikes.
You think about Severino and pitch conservation and how the Yankees have kind of watched him go along, and they keep a very close full eye on him, even though they said there are no limits on him. That's why they slowed him down. It's a little bit frustrating, I'm sure, for Larry Rothschild as he watches him fall behind 2-0 on the pitcher, also 2-0 on Andrelton Simmons, a guy who is very aggressive. Those are the little ways that you can save pitches along the way, by being aggressive against guys like pitchers and also guys that you know are going to be swinging like Simmons.
Ground ball to second. Stephen Drew makes the play. 2 away here in the 5th. And this has to be one of those innings where when you're looking at, pitch counts and how far somebody can go, Severino says, okay, I've got Simmons, the 8-hole hitter, the pitcher in the 9 spot. This could be an inning where I can have a quick 1-2-3. Now, of course, you got to deal with Markakis. But this is one of those opportunities where you look through and you say, all right, at least I can be economical with my pitch count now and help me get into the 7th, potentially 8th inning if you're pitching well.
Ideally, yes, you want a young pitcher thinking that way and thinking about, all right, I'm turning this lineup over. You want to be able to do it, of course, with nobody on and 2 outs, and not giving Nick Markakis an opportunity to hit with runners in scoring position, which is something that he has done pretty well this year at a .319 clip. And so far so good here in the 5th inning.
The 0-1 to Markakis. There's a good slider.
Nasty. And so what we've seen a couple of times, we talked about how there was a little bit of a break at times, and that one he sweeps a little bit more. And you think about how much horizontal movement this ball had. It starts middle and ends up finishing in well off the plate. But Nick Markakis is used to seeing that smaller one. Then he throws the bigger one there, and he can't track it.
0-2 called, strike 3. A quick 1-2-3 inning work by Severino. That one at 97. We hit the 6th. 1-0 Yankees. The official vehicle of Major League Baseball. The Yankees and the Braves here at Turner Field. Justin Kutcher alongside C.J. Nitkowski. Top of the 6th, 1-0. Yankees on top. And Carlos Beltran leads off and takes the first pitch off speed pitch outside for ball 1.
Freddie Gonzalez has to be very happy with the outing that he's getting from Matt Whistler. Got off to a great start. We talked about that early, but he has struggled recently. About 7 runs in just 2 2/3 innings against the Chicago Cubs in his last start.
Swisher there in left field for the first out, 1 away in the 6th. That'll bring up Brian McCann, who is 0 for 1. Walked his first time up and then popped out to shallow right field with a third baseman. Adonis Garcia made the play. So with the shifts these days, it's almost impossible to score.
Well, that's what I asked you, because the inning ended. I'm like, all right, your third baseman is catching that ball almost near the right field line, and he's back there again. Like, you put that down as an F5? I mean, yeah, he caught it, and he gets the credit for the put out, but
if we're being honest, I wrote F5/4. This way I can look back and say, oh yeah, he was in right field.
I mean, these shifts have definitely improved the game. It certainly has increased the strategy of the game. It's a good conversation piece. Brian McCann certainly doesn't like it. He's watched his batting average come down over the last couple of years because of it, but it certainly has made scoring a game a lot more difficult.
Say that again. 1 ball and 1 strike to McCann, who is making his return to Atlanta for the first time since signing with the Yankees prior to last season. Brian McCann still heavily involved in different organizations here in Atlanta. His home is here. He's involved with the Raleigh Foundation for Childhood Cancer Research. He and his wife, they've raised more than $3 million since 2008. This year, fans and businesses have pledged $1,165 per home run. So last night, with that home run here, he's brought his season total to $26,795 for childhood cancer research. So cool.
That's fantastic, and that's why he is so well regarded in this community, and why he gets the applause that he gets when he comes back here, even though he's wearing a different uniform. Just a guy who's really done everything right by Braves fans, and really for Major League Baseball. They love these guys that get involved in the community and show the appreciation and pay it back to the community.
2-2 hit well down the right field line, but hooking foul.
You know, one more point real quick for me on the shift, which is interesting about Garcia. A lot of people wonder, well, why would you put your third baseman all the way over there? Why not just shift everybody else? I like it. It makes more sense, because traditionally the middle of the infield is actually still the same. And so you're only taking one guy out of his natural position as opposed to taking 3.
Trying to serve one into left field, but there is Swisher, 2 away, which leads us to a game break. Let's go back to L.A. and Ryan Field. Thanks so much, Ryan. And how about Moustakas, Hosmer? So much was made for those Royals. Those 2 guys coming up, high expectations. Moustakas was really struggling. Then all of a sudden, last year's postseason, he became the player the Royals thought he would be, and it's just carried over this year. It seems like he just gained that confidence that he needed, and now he's doing what he's supposed to be doing as Bird flies out to left. And that's a quick 1-2-3 and it worked by Whistler. He is through 6, but he trails 1-0. One of my favorite things about coming to Atlanta, the tomahawk chop. They teach them young. And old.
Absolutely can get away with letting them know early. Get it ingrained. They'll never forget it.
It reminds me, it takes me back to that 1991 season. And that was the first time for me, as Cameron Maben first pitch swinging, one hopper to Headley, one away. But that was the first time that I had heard that chop. And as a fan watching at home and the entire stadium is doing it, it would give you goosebumps.
Oh, absolutely. And it was an absolute scene here. You were 7th grade for you, probably 1991.
Not even.
Whatever. My senior year in high school. I remember it well too. I mean, the Braves, of course, so much national coverage throughout their years.
Freddie Freeman takes the first pitch slider for a strike. Freeman 0 for 1, a walk and a ground out to first. Ground ball, shortstop. There is Headley. Long throw. It's low. Bird. He stays on and digs it out. Greg Bird doing his best Mark Teixeira impersonation.
Well, this is interesting to watch because this is where the shift really comes into play. Chase Headley, of course, is a third baseman. He probably plays short in his career, as we see Greg Bird with a really nice stretch. A good job of squeezing that ball and reading that pick. But for Chase Headley, you could see it coming. It's not comfortable making that throw because he doesn't make that throw very often. And this is one of the downsides of the shift, is because a lot of times now guys are fielding the ball in a position that they're just not used to. And you say, well, he's a major league infielder. He should be able to make that throw. And the answer is yes, but that does not mean he's always comfortable making that throw. You see the same thing a lot of times in right field from second baseman. It's just a strange angle that he has not done very much in his big league career.
The shift is on again for Swisher, and you wonder if he's going to take a couple of pitches just to give Whistler a breather. Timeout asked for by Swisher. 0 for 2. Grounded into a double play and a strikeout. 5 Ks through 5 2/3 here for Severino. An awkward swing for Swisher.
It was, and you don't usually see that on a fastball. That looked like Nick Swisher didn't pick up the spin on a breaking ball. That was a 96-mile-an-hour fastball. It was down and not a strike, and almost like a guess swing from Swisher, but odd to see that on a fastball.
Oh, you follow up the awkward swing on a fastball with that changeup, and that's the best changeup we've seen yet from Severino.
And if he can locate that pitch consistently, and it is a really good one, it can absolutely be a lefty killer. Now you see him miss kind of down and over the plate, but it's the tumble on that pitch that makes it so difficult for lefties to make contact with it.
The 1-2. Tried to go back to the changeup. 2 balls and 2 strikes.
It's interesting to watch. That's something to pick up on Severino. You see him pulling a couple of pitches across his body. He's here in the 6th inning. He has not thrown more than 6 innings at the big league level. He's only thrown more than 7 innings just a couple of times this year in the minor leagues. 3 times where he's thrown 7 innings or more. And this is what he's kind of conditioned to do to be a 6-inning pitcher.
And the 2-2. Swisher gets his first hit of the night. A single to right field.
That's a fastball there that ended up splitting the middle of the plate. Brian McCann wanted that ball a little bit further down, a little bit off the plate. Leaves it in the middle, and Nick Swisher doesn't miss it.
And again, that's some inexperience. 2-2 pitch. Leaving it out over the middle. Frankly, you're lucky it's just a single. Adonis Garcia. He takes that first pitch at 95 for a strike. Garcia doubled off the center field wall just below the 400 mark. On his last at bat, is also lined out to first. Just missing him. 1 ball and 1 strike.
Well, I'll tell you this, watching Severino close up, you can tell he is not afraid to throw the ball inside. The combination when he throws that slider away to right-handed hitters and comes back with the fastball in, it's a very difficult combination for righties.
Going the other way, drops in front of Beltran. Back-to-back 2-out singles for the Braves here in the 6th.
And I'm okay with this for Severino. He got 2 outs on 3 pitches to start the inning, but he comes back and he's still throwing strikes and filling up the strike zone. Not trying to pitch to corners, not trying to pick. The result has been 2 singles, but much better for me than the walks that we saw from him earlier in the game.
Larry Rothschild on the phone to the bullpen. 1-0 Yankees leading bottom half of the 6th inning. 2 outs. Runners on first and second now for Jace Peterson, who has walked both times he has come to the plate. Ground ball right side. Drew takes the nice hop, and that'll do it. And Severino likes it. Gets around the 2-out jam again. We head to the 7th. It's 1-0 Yankees. Celebrating August as the inaugural Play Ball Month. More than 125 city mayors are hosting Play Ball events. To learn more, go to playball.org and get out and play. Top of the 7th here in Atlanta. The rookie Matt Whistler still out there on the mound to face Headley, Gregorius, and Drew for the Yankees. Headley's 0 for 2, a strikeout and a fly out to left. Shows bunt because of the shifts. Pulls it back and takes the pitch for a ball. Double barrel action in the bullpen for the Braves. Marksberry and Moylan warming up.
You and I had talked about how Matt Whistler has struggled a little bit as of late. He has not gone more than 5 1/3 innings since July 26th when he was able to get through 7. But since then he has really struggled. Pitching here now into the 7th inning, having given up that just that 1 run. Freddie Gonzalez has to be thrilled, but wondering how much longer he's going to go as we see that pitch count climb up to 96.
3 balls, no strikes to Headley. And he's taken all the way, takes the strike, 3-1.
Whistler threw 100 pitches once this year in a big league game. He also threw 112 in AAA earlier this year. So you got to figure maybe 105, 110, probably the most they're going to want to go with him.
3 balls and 2 strikes. The payoff pitch. Headley in the air, center field. May have been going back, still back, turns, can't make the play. One hops the wall, and Headley's in with a leadoff double.
Chase Headley certainly hit this ball hard, and the most difficult play for an outfielder is the ball that is straight at you. And Cameron Maybin, as we see this pitch, look at changeup that sat middle. This ball was right at Maybin. He got turned around. This is going to be a great view as you watch here. Because it's coming off the left-handed bat, it is slicing away. He realizes that he misread it, tries to turn at the last second, but he's got no chance. A long way to run, and then try to turn around as well. A pretty difficult play for Cameron Maybin. And like you said, that leadoff double now here for the New York Yankees, and wondering about that action that the Braves have in their bullpen.
And now you wonder, does the bunt come into play? With Gregorius at the plate, Headley on at second. 26th double of the season for Chase Headley.
Well, normally in a National League game, I would tell you no, but because it's late right now, because they're kind of on the fence on maybe how far they want to go with Severino, who has never pitched more than 6 innings in the big leagues, they may move him over and go to a pinch hitter if they don't get the run in. I'm not a fan of the bunt here, but absolutely it's in play.
1 ball, no strikes to Gregorius. Not showing bunt, pulls it into right field. Headley being waved around third. He's going to score. Gregorius going for 2, and he's in there with an RBI double. And yes, there are more Yankee fans here than Braves fans.
You're wondering what that cheering is, and you're absolutely right. There's the reason why you don't find, especially with the left-handed hitter, because worst case scenario, if you're thinking about hitting a ground ball to the right side, getting the runner over, another pitch that sits middle, and Gregorius absolutely busts it out of the box as we see Freddie Freeman try to go one step and dive, but that ball was hit too far and past it. But watch Didi Gregorius right here, thinking double all the way as soon as that ball gets past Freeman. Watch him really turn it on right here, too.
In the notes, they call him Notorious D.I.D. He just got a double, and he knocks Whistler out of the game. Jim Harbaugh makes his Michigan coaching debut when the Wolverines take on the Utah Utes. It's the season's biggest opener, and the only place you can see it is on Fox Sports 1 and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. Coverage begins Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, sponsored by Geico. The Harbaugh era begins for Michigan. Matt Whistler's night is done. Pitched well, 6+, 4 hits, 2 runs as of right now, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts. Matt Marksberry is in to face Stephen Drew, and Drew Tries to bunt, and he pops it foul over the screen.
And Marksberry is one of 3 rookie relievers that are in that bullpen for the Atlanta Braves, and really a lot of what they're doing right now is we see the turnover, them trying to figure out what they have in their system. Looking at the splits, 143 against left-handers. Now it's only been 14 games. 385 against righties. That's why he's in here right now as the situational lefty trying to get Stephen Drew out.
Drew again shows bunt. Again, he can't get it down. And it's no balls and 2 strikes. So now, if you're Stephen Drew, you need to get that runner over to third base. Get it to the right side. Get that runner over.
Absolutely. That is how you salvage the 2 failed bunt attempts, because Joe Girardi wants him to give himself up to try to get Didi Gregorius into scoring position with less than 2 outs, which tells me they're probably going to pinch hit as well, even though we see Severino out on deck. And like you said, now just trying to hit the ball on the ground to the right side.
In the dirt, gets away from Bethancourt. Gregorius thought about it, then went back to second.
That's a nice job by Bethancourt. We talked about him getting down a little bit late there. That time much better. Knees down before that ball hits the dirt, and it kicks off, and he jumps right back up because he knows Gregorius is fast. And that's a good job by Didi as well, because he knows that if he's going to get there, he's got to be 100% sure. With nobody out, he wasn't. He decides to hold.
1 ball, 2 strikes to Drew. Breaking ball popped up right side. Freeman will make the catch for the first out. And will Severino hit or be pinch hit for? It looks like he's being called back, and pinch hitting will be Alex Rodriguez.
Severino thinking right now, Coach, did you not see how well I swung the bat? A couple of good at-bats, a ground out, the long fly ball to right. But Alex Rodriguez, a much longer history with the bat than Severino.
Someone just fell over the upper deck right below us. Oh my gosh. They have to stop the game. Oh my gosh. As Alex Rodriguez was coming and being introduced, a fan fell from the upper deck right in front of one of the radio booths. The players in the field don't see any of this. Here come the EMT. Alex Rodriguez is going to hit, and they're going to intentionally walk him. The fans not happy with this, as they want to see Rodriguez hit. It'll be first and second, 1 out, and the lefty Ellsbury coming up against the lefty Marksberry. So not a surprise move here by Freddie Gonzalez to intentionally walk Rodriguez.
Now this is definitely the smart move here. What you want to do with Alex Rodriguez, set up the double play as they flip over now to the top of the lineup. And really working into the Braves' favor, of course, as we talked about the splits for Marksberry and trying to set up a potential ground ball, an ideal matchup for him as he goes against Jacoby Ellsbury, and also, of course, Brett Gardner behind him, who's also left-handed.
Roger McDowell is going to come out and speak to the young left-hander Marksberry. First and second, 1 out. Ellsbury doubled back in the first, scored, struck out, and walked his last time up.
Roger McDowell here taking his young rookie left-hander, talking about strategy, making sure he's going over exactly what they talked about pregame, which is how are you going to attack Ellsbury in this situation? What are his strengths? What are his weaknesses? And trying to figure out, obviously, a ground ball is a perfect situation, but also just making sure you're keeping the ball off the barrel of the bat. A
leadoff double by Headley in the inning. A misplay out there in center field by Maben. Then Gregorius doubled to right field to score Headley. Drew popped out to first. Rodriguez pinch hit for Severino. Intentionally walked, and now Ellsbury at the plate. And the first pitch breaking ball's in there for a strike.
And the thing that I'm sure Roger McDowell was cautioning Marksberry on is, even though you're going to throw that first pitch breaking ball, you can't just throw the get me over one in that situation. Veteran hitters looking for ways to drive in runs whenever they have runners in scoring position and trying to jump on the first pitch breaking ball.
Swing and a miss by Ellsbury. Bethencourt wants to go out and speak with Marksberry. Top of the 7th here in Atlanta. The Yankees leading 2-0. A run in the first and a run here in the 7th. Called strike 3 on the inside corner. 2 away here in the 7th.
What a great job by Marksberry, just 24 years old and a rookie, getting put in a big situation. Yes, they're down 2-0, but to come in and face Ellsbury right away and to strike him out on 3 pitches. And now he's got to try to do it again against Brett Gardner.
Gardner 0 for 3. A ground out, a line out to first, and a strikeout. Gets away from Bethencourt. Gregorius this time does take the base.
And you see Bethencourt call timeout right away. There was obviously a miscommunication on the signs right there. You can tell the way he caught it. That wasn't a pitch that should have been difficult to handle. Just a fastball on the outside part of the plate. But let's watch Bethencourt here, expecting a break ball. As you see the glove start to turn down because he's expecting that ball to drop. So now they go back out there. They have that conversation. What signs we're using with the runner on second. Now obviously no runner on second base, but making sure they're both on the same page.
And that's more nerve-wracking for a catcher. If you're expecting a fastball and a breaking ball comes, you can adjust. Expecting breaking ball, fastball comes, whoa.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when you find out how good your hands really are, as your hands and eyes try to get that figured out. And luckily Bethencourt was able to at least get a glove on that ball. You sometimes wonder about a young pitcher and his heart rate right now and seeing what he thinks he saw when those signs went down.
On the outside corner, 1-1. First and third, 2 outs. Top of the 7th for the Yankees. Breaking ball missing inside. Now it's 2-1. Gardner fouls it back. 2 balls and 2 strikes.
See Marksberry talking to himself a little bit, trying to get himself geared up for the situation, but staying focused, not overthrowing.
And he gets him swinging. So Marksberry does the job out of the bullpen. It's time to stretch him out here in Atlanta. 2-0 New York. To the Braves, Justin Kutcher alongside C.J. Nikowski. We told you before that a fan had fallen from the upper deck here at Turner Field behind home plate. That fan has been tended to since, has been taken away by the paramedics. If we have any more information, when we get any more information, we will pass that along to you. A new pitcher into the game for the Yankees is a left-hander, Justin Wilson, coming in after Severino was pinch hit for. Alex Rodriguez, pinch hit for him, was intentionally walked. But it's 2-0. Wilson on the season, 4-0, 3.09 ERA, 50 strikeouts and 46 2/3 innings. And he will face Bethancourt leading off in the 7th. Right back up the middle, leadoff single for Christian Bethancourt.
Bethancourt certainly happy to see Matt Whistler out of the game. 0 for 2 in his first 2 at-bats with a couple of strikeouts.
Severino owns Bethancourt in this one, and now it's a man on first and Andrelton Simmons coming up.
Of course, I meant Severino. He's probably not happy to see Matt Whistler, his own pitcher, out of the game.
Simmons 0 for 2 against Severino, a ground out and a strikeout. And this is where it's tough if you're a pitcher pitching like Severino was. He was pitching a good game, but he has to get taken out because you want a pinch hitter in that situation. And so now his night is done after 6. Did not give up a run over 6 innings. And Justin Wilson is in behind in the count, 1-0 to Simmons.
Well, that's always the tough balance that you have to play as an American League manager and you come to these National League ballparks. Now, Joe Girardi has done it before, and you can see we watched him a little bit, and he was really on the fence as far as what he wanted to do, even as that inning ended. After the 6th inning, I was watching him in some of the shots that we had in between innings. You could tell they were trying to figure out what was the right move, and ultimately decided that if there was a situation where they had a chance to drive in a run, they were going to go ahead and take Severino out of the game, and that's exactly what happened.
And I think, you know, he was thinking along with Freddie Gonzalez, if he pinch hits Rodriguez, the likelihood is he might get intentionally walked. Inside out to right field. Beltran has to play it on a bounce. First and second. Nobody out here in the 7th for Atlanta. And Johnny Gomes is going to come up as a pinch hitter. We spoke with Johnny Gomes earlier about his pitching prowess from last night. Now this is what he's much more comfortable doing.
Yeah, this is kind of what has been Johnny Gomes' calling card, is his ability to hit left-handed pitching and to come in and to do it in a pinch as well. Now more in that pinch hitter role. It's not an easy thing to do, but he has become very good at it over the course of his career. Been very good against lefties, and this is now the role that he has. A .275 career batting average against lefties, just .221 against righties. 67 home runs against lefties in his career. Not a bunt situation.
No. That is a good call. Wilson's a hard throwing lefty. First pitch is low and outside for ball 1. Johnny Gomes, there were the numbers you talked about. .275 against lefties.
And if you're wondering about what, why is Wilson in this situation, you look at his splits. He's actually been better against right-handed hitters this year. .209 versus .250 against lefties.
Good fastball in the inside corner, 1-1. Wilson's 1-1. Bird goes to second for 1. Wilson's covering, gets away from him. Coming in to score will be Bethancourt. 2-1 Yankees lead. Gomes on at first. That's one of those where Gregorius just has to eat it.
That was a bad decision by Didi Gregorius. It's very easy for us to see from this angle that they were going to have absolutely no play at first base. Remember, Wilson is a left-handed pitcher. He's going to fall off to the third base side a little bit, which means he's going to be late getting over to first base. And as he tries to hustle to get there, as you see him spin toward third and then now try to pick it up and get there in time, he is running at full speed as much as he can and trying to shuffle his feet and get himself together and catch a Didi Gregorius throw at the same time. That was a disaster waiting to happen, and you're absolutely right, Justin. That is a situation where Gregorius should not be making that throw.
And now a pinch runner will be Michael Bourne. It is an error charge to Wilson. So 2-1. Markakis is the batter ahead in the count now. 1 ball and no strikes. Markakis 1 for 3, a single, a ground out, and a strikeout. Bourne with good speed on at first base. In the air, center field, driving Ellsbury back. He has room to make the catch. Going back to first is Bourne. 2 outs in the 7th. Follow your favorite team and players all season with MLB.com At Bat, the #1 app for live baseball. At Bat is up to the moment at any moment with in-game highlights, live look-ins, replay reviews, radio broadcasts, StatCast, and more. Get MLB.com At Bat now. 2 outs. Cameron Maybin, the batter. Joe Girardi coming out. We will have a pitching change here in Atlanta. Bottom of the 7th, Yankees lead 2-1. Well, Brian McCann, he is making his return to Atlanta. That is courtesy on Twitter of the Yankees. You can tag your post with the hashtag SwingData, and T-Mobile will keep the conversation going. Data strong all season long. Dylan Betances is the new pitcher in to face Cameron Maybin. One of the biggest weapons, both literally and figuratively, in all of baseball out of the bullpen.
Well, this guy is a premier setup man, and there was some talk about whether or not he would be the closer when Andrew Miller came in. I like the role that the Yankees are using him, where they can bring him in as early as the 7th inning. Him and Andrew Miller, both dominant relievers, but I like that Joe Girardi has that flexibility. A lot of times you peg a guy as your closer, and then you don't use him until the 9th inning, and this may be one of the biggest outs of the game right here.
Look at those numbers. 104 strikeouts in 66 innings. 1-0 breaking ball behind the count. Now 2 balls and no strikes. Maben is 0 for 3. A foul out to the catcher, a ground out to the pitcher, and a ground out to third. 2-1, bottom of the 7th. The Blue Jays already won this afternoon, 15-1 over the Tigers. Runner takes off from first, throw down from McCann, not in time. Stolen base by the pinch runner Michael Bourne.
And that has probably been the one weakness of Dylan Betances' game, which is almost hard to fathom. But that is the 15th stolen base that he has allowed this year. 15 out of 18. The next closest reliever has allowed 9 stolen bases this year, so he leads by 6. That is a huge number for Dylan Betances. That has everything to do with the fact he's a little bit slower to the plate. That's what makes him so dominant with his stuff, but he has a very hard time holding runners.
And now a 4-pitch walk to Cameron Maben. And if you're looking at this lineup, the one guy you don't want to face in this situation is the guy coming up in Freddie Freeman.
Well, there's definitely right now, with the way the Braves have been swinging it, not too many guys that you're trying to avoid, but you're absolutely right. Freddie Freeman, the best hitter in this lineup. When you think about the lefty-righty matchup, not that it matters that much with Dylan Betances. Lefty's hitting just 117 off of him this year. Righties at 149. With the stuff that he has, splits don't necessarily matter, but he's going up against the premier left-handed hitter right now in Freeman.
Freeman is 0 for 2. I tell you what, Betances has come out throwing predominantly breaking balls out of the bullpen, and he's not able to locate them.
Which is surprising a little bit when you think about the dominant stuff and the great fastball that he has that averages right around 97 miles an hour. He does have the good slider. He actually throws his slider more, about 51% of the time, compared to his fastball, which is at 49%, both dominating pitches.
Another slider, this time in their first strike.
I asked Joe Girardi about this before the game, about the workload for Dylan Betances. Last year, 90 innings pitched. This year, he's on pace. As we see the slider, it's a good one right there. This year on pace for about 85 innings. That's a heavy workload by today's standards, but he's felt comfortable with the way that they've used him, giving him the days off he felt like when he's needed.
In the dirt, McCann, and holding at second is Bourne. Well, what's interesting, that back end of the bullpen for the Yankees, both Betances and Miller were starters. And then Betances moved to the bullpen, Miller moved to the bullpen. So they're not those guys who you can bring in for 3 outs and that's it. Both of them can get between 4 and 6 outs if need be.
And in the same uniform, I think you can make that same comparison to the great Mariano Rivera, who was a failed starter at the big league level and in the minor leagues, and he became probably actually the best reliever we've ever seen. I feel comfortable saying that about Mariano, and I think you see what guys like Miller and Betances have done. All of those guys have become starters, and former starters, and early in their careers, they can go a couple innings. They can take on a lot of innings. Certainly, Mariano did it over the course of his career.
1996, these Braves fans know it well. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs, runners on first and second. Back up the middle, Betances with the play to first. The no-look grab. And the Yankees maintain the lead. 2-1 as we go to the 8th. Thanks to our Gatorade play of the game, fueled by Gatorade, against Freddie Freeman, the no-look.
And we've seen quite a few of these this year. That one kind of happened in slow motion, but when you're as big as Dylan Betances is, this is not necessarily an easy move. Now, it's probably an out anyway, as you see Didi Gregorius in the background right there playing up the middle. But the worst thing that could have happened was that Betances actually deflected that ball, and it dribbles off to the side, and maybe Freddie Freeman gets an infield hit. But nevertheless, right in his glove, and he'll tell you all along that was exactly how he planned it.
A new pitcher into the game for the Braves. It's Edwin Jackson. Jackson combined with the Cubs and the Braves this year, 2-2, a 3.52 ERA. He will face Carlos Beltran, Brian McCann, Greg Bird in the 8th in a one-run game. Beltran 0 for 2. First pitch off speed, misses for ball 1. Beltran struck out, walked, flew out to left field. Has an 11-game hitting streak. Outside, 2 balls and no strikes. People forget Edwin Jackson, when he was coming up, was like Luis Severino. I mean, the #1 pitching prospect in the game.
Absolutely, a big arm. He first broke through with the Dodgers, and then, of course, was with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays back then before they became the Rays. And you know, he's had 262 career starts. It's not that he wasn't ever successful as a starter. He had some nice runs, but never got to the level that was anticipated.
Nearly a 4-pitch walk. Beltran thought it was, and said it's 3 balls and a strike. There's ball 4. A leadoff walk to Carlos Beltran. Watch every out-of-market game live in HD on more than 400 devices with MLB.TV Premium, the #1 live streaming sports service. Real-time highlights, live look-ins, pitch tracking widget, and more. Every night on every device, visit MLB.TV for details. Who doesn't love the pitch widget?
And I tell you, Edwin Jackson still has the live fastball sitting around 94 miles an hour. He was with the Chicago Cubs earlier this year. Last year of a 3-year, $39 million deal, and he gets an opportunity to finish out that contract here with the Atlanta Braves. And even though he's been around for a while, he's still only 31 years old. He'll turn 32 in September.
It's crazy.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it seems like he's been around a lot longer than that, but that's what happens when you have a guy that breaks into the big leagues at 19 years old with the Dodgers. And you see the velocity. There's still something left in that arm, and he may be able to find a few more years coming out of the bullpen.
Chris Young, the pinch runner, at first base. Brian McCann at the plate, looking for his first hit tonight. Walked back in the first, pop out, and a fly out to left. Gets into one to right center field. Markakis looks, this one hops the wall. Young being waved around third. He's going to come in to score an RBI double for McCann. '80th RBI of the year for Brian McCann, comes on his 15th double.
We know that Brian McCann is a good fastball hitter, and he gets one to handle right here, right down the middle, trying to go away a little bit with a little bit of movement, but McCann leaning out over the plate and able to get to a good fastball that's away from him and pull it and still get some lift on it. Sometimes you'll see left-handed hitters try to pull that right-handed fastball and roll over it, but he squared it up and crushed it in the gap.
I think he likes hitting here at Turner Field.
He's been here a few times.
Greg Bird now at the plate. 1 for 2. A walk, a single, and a fly out to left. First pitch swinging in the air, left field. Swisher in fair territory, makes the catch. And that is the first out of the inning. But if you think about it, we always talk about leadoff walks, how they come around to score at a crazy rate. Leadoff walk to Beltran. Next batter, RBI double.
You never know if the numbers are true, but I will tell you that coming through the minor league system before we had all this access to data, you were always told 80% of the time. It seemed like a big number.
That seems pretty big.
Like almost like a ghost story. Like minor league coaches and player development people were trying to just scare you to death of walking guys to lead off an inning. And it works, and you see it all the time. And we just saw it there, and you do see it very often. I don't know if it's 80%, but that was kind of seemed like it was always the tactic when you were in the minor leagues.
Chase Headley takes the first pitch for a strike. Headley doubled and scored his last time up. Also a fly out to left and a strikeout. Tonight's attendance 49,243. A sellout, the largest crowd of the season here at Turner Field. I guess there really is a Yankees effect.
Oh, absolutely. Even in a year, I mean, they're still a good team this year, but it's not necessarily the heyday, but there's still good names and big names that people want to come here and they want to see them live in person. And you go around the country. I put this uniform on and played for the Yankees for a little while in 2004, and it is like no other uniform that you ever put on when you're on the road. There are so many more fans that come out regardless of what city you're in. The New York Yankees have an unbelievable nationwide reach amongst baseball fans.
Whether you're on the road in grays, you're at home in those famed pinstripes, people follow the Yankees. The famous interlocking NY 3-1 they lead here in the top of the 8th over the Braves. Yankee hats, t-shirts, jerseys all over this ballpark. Good pitch, 1-2 to Headley. You said it though about this team. This is not your typical Yankees team, and for the first time that I can remember in my lifetime, there is no real true face to the Yankees.
Well, it's different, right? All the big guys are gone. Derek Jeter, the last of them last year to kind of walk away.
That gets away from Bethancourt. Down to third base goes McCann. A wild pitch as Headley was able to avoid getting hit.
And the Yankees now in a different era. Still a good team, still a competitive team. And we've been watching Bethancourt closely. We'd be asking a lot if we expected him to get to that ball. That's a pretty difficult pitch to try to block. Down and in as it almost hit Chase Headley. But it's still a good team. But it's at a different feel for sure. It's younger. And I think absolutely that has been Brian Cashman's plan all along, trying to get more youth, more homegrown youth into this organization. Also guys that they've traded for like Nate Eovaldi. And in the long term, they'll be better for it. And somebody will emerge. There will be a guy who is the face of the New York Yankees.
Called strike 3. Headley goes down looking, doesn't agree with the call by home plate umpire Mike Estabrook. 2 outs here in the 8th.
Well, Chase Headley is frustrated because he knows he's got a runner at third base, wants to put the ball in play and try to get this RBI. That ball is high, and we don't see the high strike. It's certainly something that I feel like over the years you go back and watch film from the 60s and 70s, and the high strike was called pretty regularly. But in today's Major League Baseball, we don't see that pitch called, and that's because it's not a strike.
And the frustration for Headley, a long, slow walk back to the dugout. Gregorius doubled his last time up to drive in Headley. A chance to get his second RBI of the night. And the first pitch fastball's in there for a strike. We talk about the changes for the Yankees. Obviously, none bigger than Didi Gregorius as the everyday shortstop. Derek Jeter no longer playing, retired last year. And Gregorius has filled those shoes quite ably.
What do you think about that conversation and having to be that guy? I don't know if anybody wants to be that guy, the guy that's going to replace Derek Jeter. And I think the Yankees did a pretty good job of trying to diffuse that and keep the conversation in a different direction and not try to label Didi Gregorius as that guy, although that actually was going to be his position. And they brought him in. And the one thing I'd heard about him before he got to the Yankees, asking people about him who had been around him, they always raved about his character. And so I asked Joe Girardi about it as well, and he said absolutely, as advertised, if you're going to bring a guy in to handle the position from a character standpoint, you're not going to do any better than Didi Gregorius.
No balls, 2 strikes to Gregorius. Lays off the high one, the appeal to third base, and Dana DeMuth says he did not go. You mentioned it though, that was 96 on the gun from Edwin Jackson. Still certainly plenty of life left in that arm.
Well, he hasn't really been a full-time reliever before. This is the first year. where he hasn't made any starts. And, you know, it's been kind of an up and down year, but overall the numbers are pretty good. And like I said, you could see him extending his career a few more years out of the bullpen with that good velocity that he still has.
2 balls and 2 strikes. After we had just 1 run through 6 innings, the Yankees got a run in the top of the 7th. The Braves got it back. The Yankees got the run back here in the top of the 8th. 2-2. Check swing is fouled back. And what's really weird to think about is how well this team has come together. And again, no real face of the team, but it's going to sound really weird, but I almost think not having a guy like a Derek Jeter in the clubhouse has allowed other guys to just kind of step up and maybe be themselves in this situation and help the young kids and bring everyone along.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, you love having a leadership guy. It's not ever to say that the team is better off, of course, without Derek Jeter, but it's a different feel here. And for some of the younger guys, you still have veterans that you can look up to. You still have veterans that you can talk to and bounce ideas off of. I mentioned about Alex Rodriguez earlier. He loves that kind of stuff. Mark Teixeira is a good guy. He doesn't mind sharing and spending some time with some young rookies, as we see CC Sabathia, another good guy in the game who has been through a ton, can help some of these younger pitchers. And so maybe there's not the guy that has, you know, the huge exposure national or even worldwide for that matter. You know, people around, baseball fans around the world know who Derek Jeter is. Well, maybe for now the Yankees tone it back a little bit, and it's just about being a good team and maybe not having the huge personalities.
Another 2-2 is outside, 3-2, and really I haven't heard many people say this, but I've wondered if not having Jeter in that clubhouse has actually allowed Alex Rodriguez to be the guy he has been this year. Pressure almost taken off of him.
It's an interesting conversation to have for sure, and it's an interesting dynamic with basically 2 of the greatest shortstops while they were playing. Of course, we had that great shortstop era with Nomar Garciaparra, Miguel Tejada, Cal Ripken, and of course Jeter and A-Rod.
Gregorius into center. And coming on to make the play is Maben. The Yankees do get 1 run back. They leave a man at third. Head to the bottom of the 8th. It's 3-1 Yankees. Luis Severino, Matt Whistler, both pitched well. The rookies, 6 innings apiece. No runs for Severino, 2 for Whistler. Gregorius, an RBI double. McCann, an RBI double as well. The Yankees lead 3-1 as we go to the bottom of the 8th. It is 4-5-6 in the order for Atlanta against Dellin Betances. Swisher, Adonis Garcia, Jace Peterson due up. Swisher singled his last time up. And he takes the first pitch fastball for a strike. Chris Young, who pinch ran for Carlos Beltran, stays in the game to play right field. He has been a big addition. Came over last year. The Yankees re-signed him in the offseason. That fourth outfielder has gotten significant playing time.
It just seemed like one of the many kind of under the radar moves that Brian Cashman has made that has really helped this team. Chris Young, the way they're able to plug him in, late defense, filling in when he has to. They always have some kind of injury here. Of course, you know, Ellsbury can be a little bit injury prone. The fact that Chris Young has some flexibility has been a good Yankee, and it's been a really good pickup by Brian Cashman.
No balls and 2 strikes here to Swisher. Swisher goes the other way against the shift, and he has singles in his last 2 at bats.
I always wonder about hitters. Obviously, you love getting hits whenever you can get them, but when you beat the shift, is it extra rewarding? You said, hey, you think you're smarter than me? Well, I'm going to show you. And Nick Swisher does a nice job of staying on that ball, driving it to left field. You see the head down, and even if there was regular defense, that ball probably gets through based on how hard and where he hit it. But I always think there's got to be some extra gratification when a hitter beats the shift.
Adonis Garcia, 2 for 3. Swing and a miss at that breaking ball, 0-1. Garcia doubled off the center field wall, singled to right his last time up, and lined out to first. Foul tipped into the mid of McCann, 0-2.
You talked about Betances and how often he is using his slider to start off this at bat with Garcia, and it's almost like he pitches backwards, and that's a lot of times saved for guys with lesser stuff. You flip in the breaking balls early and then try to sneak a fastball by them, but this is an 85 to 88 mile an hour breaking ball and then a 97 mile an hour fastball. It's almost unfair.
Again goes the slider, misses this time, 1-2.
And I love the combination, you know, after him seeing 3 sliders, trying to throw a fastball in to finish him off. You're taught not to finish a game in. He does represent, Garcia does, the tying run. We'll see what Brian McCann calls it. They want another slider.
Cued off the end of the bat. Stephen Drew has 1 play to first. He gets the out. Swisher goes down to second. 1 away. Jace Peterson will step to the plate. Peterson has reached base twice tonight via the walk, a ground out to second to end the threat in the 6th. The Braves had runners on first and second in the inning with 2 outs. Fastball in the outside corner at 97. If you remember correctly, Betances was struggling in spring training. Didn't have the velocity, couldn't find the breaking ball. All of a sudden, it clicked.
Well, there's something to be said for once you have established yourself at the major league level, and Betances certainly did that a year ago. Spring training is not the same anymore. You come in the first couple times when you're young, you're excited from day one. Everything you have, you're letting it fly. You're trying to make an impression on your manager, your coaching staff, your potential teammates. Well, once you know you have that spot locked in, spring training has a little bit of a different feel. It's a little bit more of a lull. And so I never get worried about guys who have a track record or guys who have gotten it done about struggling or velocity being down in spring training. There's something about the adrenaline that happens at this level that you just cannot repeat once you're an everyday major leaguer.
Good slider, 1-2. Swisher on at second, 1 out, bottom 8. The Yankees trying to stay a game and a half back of the Blue Jays in the AL East. Another slider, another swing and a miss, and a strikeout for Betances. That's his first. 2 outs here in the 8th. Time for a game break. Let's go back to Ryan Field in LA. Well, I know Duke Snider can't hit any more home runs, but I have a feeling Miguel Cabrera might hit a few more.
Absolutely. Signed through his age 40 season. There's a few more years left on that contract and the way he hits.
Bethancourt, the Baltimore chop. Headley has to hurry. Not in time. Bethancourt beats it out. Let's see if the Yankees take a look at this.
Well, this is another tough play for Chase Headley, and it's going to be all or nothing as we see Greg Bird with the stretch. You can't see where the ball went in the glove on that replay right there. It's a good job by Headley. That's the best he can do. It's a pretty good job, and you see how he grabs that almost like a changeup, so he might have lost a little bit of velocity. Safe, but Bethancourt beats it out.
Infield single, first and third, 2 outs. Simmons singled his last time up. Starts him off with a slider, swing and a miss.
And for Andrelton Simmons, that's where you have to be doing your homework a little bit. I know he's an aggressive hitter, and you know he's looking for something to drive here with an opportunity to get a run in or maybe more. But it has been first pitch slider after first pitch slider, righty on righty. He has to almost be anticipating that pitch and just be hunting the fastball in that situation.
Another slider, 1-1. Look who's on deck. A.J. Przinsky to hit in the pitcher spot if Simmons gets on. Fouled back. Watch out.
This is where becoming a bench player is one of the most difficult things to do against good bullpens. For A.J. Przinsky, if he does get up to the plate this inning, he gets Dylan Betances, probably Andrew Miller in the ninth, so it'll probably not be him. That would be a pretty tough matchup, lefty on lefty, but pinch hitting late in the game is absolutely one of the most difficult things to do, especially in close games when you know you're going to be going up against your opponent's best relievers.
The 1-2 in the dirt, 2-2. McCann goes out to speak with Betances. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs. Here in the bottom of the 8th, the Yankees lead by 2.
That conversation right there for me is something along the lines of don't be afraid to throw in the dirt. He, again, Brian McCann knows these hitters as good as anybody, and he knows Andrelton Simmons will expand the zone, and he doesn't want Betances to lose confidence in throwing that ball down and away, down in the dirt with the runner on third base.
Another breaking ball called strike 3. Simmons not happy. Home plate umpire Estabrook pointing at him. Does not throw him out. We go to the 9th. It's 3-1 New York. Strike call by Mike Estabrook, the home plate umpire. And we'll take a look at this again.
See, Brian McCann is kind of sit middle, expecting the slider to be middle away. This is an accidental front door slider. And this pitch never crosses the plate, and you see Singleton's frustration. And the home plate umpire basically instructing him to go ahead and pick up his bat. And the wrong word right here, and Andrelton Simmons probably would have been kicked out of the game, but he has a legitimate argument. That ball was never a strike, and I think home plate umpire Mike Eastbrook was probably a little bit fooled by that pitch because the slider was coming across so much. There was so much horizontal movement on it. That one actually stayed there, and there might have been a situation where he had anticipated a little bit more movement than that was actually on the pitch.
A new pitcher into the game here in the 9th inning for the Braves. It is Arodys Vizcaíno. Has appeared in 20 games, a .48 ERA, 18 2/3 innings. Opponents hitting just 169 against him. He'll face Stephen Drew, then Brendan Ryan in the on-deck circle to hit in the pitcher spot. Drew popped out to first base his last time up, 0 for 3 in this one.
And another good fastball coming out of this Braves bullpen for Vizcaíno, sitting at around 97 miles an hour. See 99 right out of the chute. It is incredible the velocities over the last few years that have emerged in Major League Baseball.
Fouled away, 1-1. What's your take though on, all these guys are coming out and throwing 95, 97, even 100, but the control might not be there.
Well, if the control's not there, you can't pitch in the big leagues, and there'll be a lot of hitters that get frustrated when we see it. When you see a young guy get to the big leagues too early and he doesn't know how to pitch inside, or he's not confident pitching inside, and we see guys getting hit by pitches, that's when the frustration will start to mount.
Ground ball to short. Simmons, easy play for him. 1 away. The best seats at every ballpark for every game. Visit MLB.com/tickets today. You can't get those seats. Sorry.
No, those are not available. It's a little bit of a longer road to try to get those. As you see Joe Girardi talking to Chase Headley right now, frustrated with what had happened in his last at bat, wondering about getting that high strike that was called. Joe Girardi wants to make sure Headley is staying calm. They got to go out and play good defense this last inning. But we've seen it. It's been obvious. There have been multiple complaints from hitters over the course of this game as we watched that zone get a little bit bigger. It was tight in that first inning. They got bigger and bigger as it went on.
Brendan Ryan pinch hitting here in the pitcher spot. Ryan hitting .219 on the season, no home runs, 7 RBIs.
Finally threw in the towel on that mustache.
It's too bad.
No, it's not. I don't watch every single Yankee game, but I was looking forward to it being gone. It was impressive, but
you were just jealous.
Time to move
you
on.
just couldn't grow one like that.
You're absolutely right. It would have taken me 15 years to get there.
Even then. In their first strike, 2-1.
But getting back to those velocities, I think it is important for organizations when they see a live arm. You get excited, what you see on the radar gun, but you cannot bring these guys to the big leagues until the command is good enough to pitch at this level.
Bounce foul. 2 balls and 2 strikes. 98 miles per hour from Vizcaíno. Again, 49,243 here at the ballpark tonight. Many fans have left. The upper deck starting to empty out, but that bottom bowl, they're still here. Ryan gets into one to left. Swisher going back. He looks up. This one's off the top of the wall. And Brendan Ryan has a pinch hit double with 1 out here in the 9th for the Yankees.
How about Brendan Ryan getting an opportunity that he probably otherwise would not get because we're here in the National League? Pinch hit opportunities late in the game. And gets one of these good hard fastballs right down the middle. Gets it started early and actually in front of it. And you think about Brendan Ryan, a little bit known more for the glove. Try to get ahead of a fastball like that was impressive. And Nick Swisher kind of gave us the indication that that ball was going to be out of here, but you forget how big this ballpark is and how hard it actually is to get one out.
1 out, runner in scoring position now for Jacoby Ellsbury. 1 for 3, a double, a run scored. A walk, a couple of strikeouts, and a caught stealing. And that's outside, and looks like Bethancourt and Vizcaino again. Bethancourt is mixed up with signals with his pitcher. So this is telling me one thing. Either Bethancourt thinks it's one thing, and the pitchers all think it's something else, but they're definitely not on the same page.
No, definitely not. And this has now happened with a couple of different pitchers, and so it makes you start to think, is it Bethancourt who doesn't realize what he's doing or has not done a good job of communicating what the signs are going to be with a runner on second base? Now, Vizcaino, as hard as he is throwing that pitch at, what, 98 miles an hour, that can start to get a little bit dangerous. And so Bethancourt better make sure he's doing a good job communicating with his pitchers every time they come in the game.
How often does the catcher and the pitcher maybe change what sign they're going off of when there is a runner on at second?
Well, it shouldn't be too often if you're comfortable with your signs, if you feel like you've come up with a nice set. Now, Bethancourt hasn't been here that long, so I think that communication process has to start, and it probably happens pretty consistently. As a reminder, every time the guy comes in the game, what do you got with a runner on second? Second sign, shake first, whatever it might be.
Swing and a miss by Ellsbury, 1-2.
And that's usually how it works. You come up with some set, and then if I shake off, you go to something else. For me, I started mixing it up. I actually liked using the simple, I thought was a simple system, strikes plus one, shake first. So if there's no strikes, it's first sign. If it's one strike, it's second sign. If there was two strikes, it's the third sign. If I shake, it's the first sign. Follow that?
And if you shimmy?
Did you follow all that? So, I mean, I feel like simple enough, and then you don't have to change it up that much. But some guys, the very traditional one was always second sign, shake first. But runners know that.
Right.
And they try to pick up on that. And they're trying to peek in because they want to be able to give signs to their hitters, and they're very sneaky about it. And so you have to pick it up a little bit. Some guys will go outs plus one. There's all different kinds of ways. You're going to go touches sometimes, as we see a 1 in, 1 out, and then a 2. We'll see what happens here.
In the dirt, 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Sometimes it can be last sign. You know, it's just a matter of what you're comfortable with. And then communicating that with your catcher, which is also very important.
Well, the rain has begun to fall here at Turner Field in Atlanta. Top of the 9th. Ryan on at second. Bethancourt going through the signs. Ground ball back up the middle. There's Simmons. Throws a strike over to first. Down to third base goes Ryan. 2 outs here in the 9th. Vizcaino has been dealing of late. 13 2/3 innings, no runs, more than a strikeout per inning.
Well, certainly an encouraging sign, and for a guy like him, the rest of the season becomes about cementing your position for next year. The Braves are not going to the postseason, but it is important to finish strong for a lot of these young guys, and so that Freddie Gonzalez and John Hart know what they have and what they can count on going into spring training and who they can pencil in and what needs they need to address this offseason.
Well, this is a big insurance run right here for the Yankees if Gardner can get and drive in Brendan Ryan, because in the 9th, you're going to have a pinch hitter come up in the 9th spot. Then Markakis, Maben, Freeman. Outside, 2-0. Never seen that shot before.
Only the best for you when we come here to Atlanta.
And what's incredible is not one drop fell on the lens. Foul tipped into the mitt of Bethancourt. 2-1 to Gardner, looking for his first hit tonight. 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts, a ground out and a line out.
Brett Gardner has been one of the steady presences in this lineup. When you think about the Yankees and homegrown players, it's been really, really good for this team. And the Yankees were smart to extend him when they did and get him locked in to the contract, and they'll have him through 2018 with an option for 19 that, if things continue to go the way they probably will, that they would exercise. It was a good sign they got ahead of it a little bit, not allowing him to get the free agency where he really could have cashed in.
Andrew Miller loose out in the bullpen. There's a strike, 3-2. Brendan Ryan, the pinch hit double. Moved to third on the ground out by Ellsbury. 3 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs. Top of the 9th. 3-1 Yankees on top. Vizcaino's 3-2. Missing up high, ball 4.
Vizcaino wanted it, of course. That one was just off the plate, but based on some pitches that we have seen throughout the night.
You know what Chase Headley's saying? Hey, wasn't it the same pitch you called a strike against me?
It's not that he wants to see Brett Gardner get called out on strikes in that situation.
Exactly.
But yes, he would like equality.
He would like that call to be the call that he got. So now it's the first at bat for Chris Young, who pinch ran for Carlos Beltran in the 8th inning. Came around to score in the RBI double by McCann. It was Young who had the home run last night against Johnny Gomes.
And no easy feat. I don't think that's an automatic where you think, okay, Johnny Gomes is coming in 68 to 70 miles an hour, and it's easy to hit off him. Now, the first 3 hitters made it look easy, as we saw the home run and a couple of doubles. But hitters will tell you all the time, you know, you get pitchers that sit, say, 90 and above, but they start getting below that hitting speed, and that's their fastball. It's actually harder to stay back.
Jamie Moyer.
Jamie Moyer, absolutely. Throwing below the hitting speed, they call it. And Johnny Gomes was a good 15 to 20 miles an hour under the hitting speed. But he settled down and figured it out.
There are guys that throw knuckleballs harder. And I love what he said. I wasn't trying to blow up the radar gun. Trying to save our bullpen.
And that's why his arm is not sore today. Just like every pitcher thinks they can hit, there's a lot of position players that think they can pitch. And when the opportunity comes, they're usually regretting it the next day because there's a soreness that they have never felt.
No balls, 2 strikes to Young. Runners on the corners. 2 away here in the 9th. Young pops one in the shallow left on the outfield grass is Simmons, and that'll do it. Last ups for the Braves. They'll have to face the closer for the Yankees, Andrew Miller, trailing 3-1. Returns with another doubleheader filled with playoff implications as the Rays take on these Yankees, followed by the NL wildcard leading Pirates, battling the NL Central leading Cardinals. Coverage begins at 12:30 p.m. Eastern right here on Fox Sports 1 and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. A new pitcher for the Yankees. It is the closer, Andrew Miller. 27 of 28 and save opportunities this year, a 1.99 ERA. He will face a pinch hitter and Pedro Siriaco.
It's been a great year for Andrew Miller, and I love this acquisition for the New York Yankees, as I talked about earlier, because it allowed Dylan Betances to stay in his role, where he's pitching in the 7th and 8th inning like he did tonight, and he did a good job. And they bring in Miller, who has really found himself a nice niche in the bullpen after struggling as a closer, or excuse me, as a starter, struggling to find consistency. A dominant reliever, as like we've seen from Betances, guys like Wade Davis. This guy's got great stuff.
No balls, 1 strike to Siriaco. On the year, 263. A home run, 15 RBIs. Yanked foul, watch out. That sends, I think it was Tony Pena scattering. Nope. That was Espada who went scattering. Joe Espada, the third base coach. When you played, they didn't have those fences out in front of the dugout.
Some of them didn't. A couple of them did.
When you started, I should say.
Yeah, when I started, they did not. They didn't have him in Yankee Stadium. Just had the open dugout, which was a little kind of awkward. Detroit, when we went to the new stadium, in Comerica, we had it. And you see more and more of it for that exact reason, just because we're seeing so many line drives. And that has started the conversation nationally, too, about whether or not Major League Baseball should be considering extending the netting down to maybe through the dugouts for some fans, because we're seeing a lot of foul balls that go into those first few rows, and they get to you pretty quick.
No balls, 2 strikes to the pinch hitter Siriaco, and he goes down swinging for out number 1. They're legends, icons, and warriors, and starting next month, 2 of the biggest names in the UFC will face off as coaches, as interim featherweight champion Conor McGregor and Uriah Faber join an all-new season of The Ultimate Fighter. The mayhem begins Wednesday, September 9th, only on Fox Sports 1. I actually went to a AAA game in Charlotte this past week. The Knights took on the Gwinnett Braves, and they had that protective screen going all the way across the dugout, on top of the dugout, and I thought it was a really good idea.
I think we're going to see it. I think the conversation has started. We have a new commissioner now in Rob Manfred, who is very proactive when it comes to the issues surrounding Major League Baseball, and that conversation has really taken off these last couple of weeks. The Phillies have talked about doing it and adding it, and I think maybe even the course of this offseason, we're going to see a lot more teams talking about it and figuring out what the best way is to utilize it. The only downside, if you're looking for one, is that for some fans, they don't like sitting behind the net. I know my father never liked it when he would come watching pitch. He preferred to be off to the side, but right there behind the dugout. And I think a lot of it has to do with how hard these guys are throwing. We're seeing a lot of check swings where guys like Markakis, left-handed hitters, are hitting the ball to the left side, to the third base side, and he gets there, like I said, very quickly.
And 0-2, and Markakis chases the slider. Back-to-back strikeouts for Miller.
Andrew Miller is just so nasty, and you see this slider against Nick Markakis that finishes a good foot off the plate, but the rotation is so tight and it's so difficult to lay off of that pitch when you have 2 strikes on you.
Braves are down to their final out. Cameron Maybin, 0 for 3, walked his last time up. Miller trying to save the game for Luis Severino. Severino would improve to 2-2. First pitch, ground ball short. Gregorius has it, and that'll do it. The Yankees take the first 2 games of this series, winning this one 3-1, and they stay a game and a half back of the Toronto Blue Jays. 3-1 Yankees win here in Atlanta. Time now for Fox Sports Live. Let's get you out to LA.